Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thought. Now let's start the video. Spoon clinking as he stirred. Aemon gingerly picked up the steaming cup of tea, a sigh leaving his body as he sipped the liquid. Brewed from the gardens of Dragonstone itself. It's been ages, but I never forget the taste. Daenerys beamed. They must not have had the same at the Wall, Uncle. No. The cleanest air in the Seven Kingdoms, yes, but nothing quite as delicious. He bared a toothless grin at his great niece. I don't regret my life, but I did miss our ancestral keep. Aemon leaned back, sighing. They all said Summerhall was more beautiful, but I always liked it here better. What Ayongo was describing equaled something out of her very dreams. What was it like? Adamant blinked. What like? Growing up here in Summerhall, being with more of our family, before it was just you and I, dearest uncle. A chuckle. Aemon knew exactly what she meant. I wouldn't give up my childhood for the world. My father and mother loved each other, as did my father and my uncles. Yamis flashed through his mind. Uncle Aquilus loved books, inspired my love for learning. Uncle Backler used to take me and little Egg riding. Egg, my youngest brother, Egon Flaw, my dearest friend. The smile that formed on Aemon's face had a touch of melancholy in it. All those he once loved long dead. He was a shy but bright lad, so eager to please, so desperate to do great things. Kill the boy, Egg. Let the man be born, I told him last. From all I've heard, he was a great king. Aye, Aemon nodded. He was for most of his reign. Father wanted him to marry dear Diala, our sister, but rumor had it she cast a love potion to make him reject her. The two shared a chuckle at that. No, he married Betha Blackwood. Those two were deeply in love. Passion runs strong in our blood, my niece. You will soon find a man that you love desperately. He will feel the same for you. Daenerys' eyes closed, frowning. I highly doubt that, Uncle. And why? You are beautiful and warm. And very smart. The praise warmed her. You are too kind, Uncle, but think about it. Who could ever love a dragon? Yes, who could? For the woman that brought dragons into the world, could anyone truly ever see her as their equal? Not a woman to be dominated or someone to dominate either. That is the curse of our family. If Targaryens answer to neither gods nor men, without another of our blood, who can we call our equal? No one but another dragon. I'm sad to say we sort of deserve this fate, the way we slaughtered each other. By the time I was born, my father was already a hardened warrior. Fought in the Blackfire Rebellion, in which he helped kill his uncle and cousins. Ended up killing his own brother too, in a trial of 7. The Maester sighed sadly. Our family let our greed and mistrust lead us to destroying each other. It's not too late to live up to our greatness, Uncle. No, it isn't too late for you. But let our hubris serve as an example. Let my experience serve as an example. Rooting at the Wall as my family was butchered, only for my family to become those that would be inclined to hate me. Outcasts, petty criminals. His unseeing eyes twinkled. And one bastard of a great northern house. In spite of anticipating this to occur, the discussion of their bloodline had disarmed Daenerys. Thus, a sigh left her lips. Oh, Uncle. She set her teacup onto the table between them. I know that Lady Saint has sent you here as someone likely to obtain the release of her brother. I may be many, many decades removed from the Red Keep, but my political mind hasn't left me. That thought crossed me once or twice. He smiled softly. I knew what she wanted. It wasn't hard to tell, Dany said, pursing her lips. Despite that, I couldn't refuse you. I had to see you, to speak with someone of my own house. You had your brother, Viserys. I did, Dany nodded. But he wasn't a true dragon, even though he often liked to call himself one. On top of that, he was hateful to me. I'm sorry, my child, Aemon sighed, taking her hands in his own. It must have been difficult. I endured as I always have. But yes, it was horrid. Daenerys closed her eyes. A gentle, happy boy in the beginning, only to transform into a monster by the circumstances. While I understand it, even naming my smallest dragon after him, it doesn't excuse what he became. Emotion beginning to get to her. He felt a bony hand resting on hers. Aemon's touch calming her heart. A person who was supposed to care for me did little caring, selling me off to a horse lord, all for nothing. Aemon stroked the back of her hand with his thumb, a comforting, almost fatherly gesture. Our hardships make us who we are. It just takes the right sort of person to take the proper lesson. I did. Viserys didn't, Dany sighed. In the end, it was selfishness that cost him. I thought it would weigh on me. Instead, I was surprised to feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. Aemon frowned. What do you mean, my child? You were happy. I am sorry, uncle. You misunderstand, Dany said, but smiled. I wasn't happy, but I didn't feel sad about it either. His death allowed me to breathe freely. All the words she brought up didn't feel right. Viserys always regaled me of our house's greatness when we were young. He thought we still had supporters in Westeros that raised toasts in our name. I believed him for a while, but he was a fool. Inundated? Yes, I understand. I knew many like that. In the Khalasar, I was Khalasai, the Khalasai, bride. I was praised and had many servants. I rode at the head with my Khalasai. I had a pretty white steed, Danya explained, remembering it all clearly. While he rode in the back, he saw how they treated me. It angered him, I believe. When in the first place he was supposed to be king, he was the one who was supposed to be loved. After a while, he wasn't getting his army. He became restless. One night, he burst into a tent where I was and threatened me in front of my Khal and his blood riders. At that time, I was also carrying the Khala's babe. As a result, he was killed. I watched the whole thing and did nothing to stop it. Aemon was silent for the longest time. A mother dragon, he finally spoke. Protecting her hatchling, I cannot say I do not blame you, nor that he didn't deserve to die. He sighed heavily. My only regret is that he got to that point. I should have stayed in King's Landing rather than leave my family. A tear fell from his eye. I should have. Think not of the past, dear uncle, Dany said, squeezing the old man's hand, as gentle as she could. Often I also think of moments I experienced, what I might have done differently, but it's pointless because it cannot be changed. You are here now, we must look forward. If I look back, I'm lost. Forward, yes, I understand. What lays ahead for you, my dear child? Victory, Dottie was quick. I see, but at what cost? Lives will be lost in the fighting. Fighting cannot be avoided. I like to see the best in people, my child. Others just look for something to divide them. I think sometimes people just want to fight for the sake of fighting. But Jon Stark, he was different. He was always someone I kept my eyes on. Always back to Jon Stark. Why? Often it grew annoying to Daenerys, but that changed after their seeming accord days before. Now she was simply curious. Aemon knew him before he was the Wrath of the North. What's so special about him? Jon, as I knew him, never wanted anyone to die. He never wanted anyone to get stepped on because, as you did, he knew what it's like to feel looked down on. Many of the men looked up to him. If he had stayed, he may have become Lord Commander. Dany bit her lip, thinking about it. He rose quickly in Stannis' army, she finally said. Or so I've been told. A true leader, I always thought, Yaemon mused. Long before he fought for Stannis, Jon was a spy north of the Wall. He led the defense of Castle Black against wildling invaders and giants. A task so tall that proud lords even cowered in fear. A man that charged straight into a Dothraki horde, that faced a dragon down, and didn't even flinch. There's no wonder that he refused to bend the knee. A man whose life was about standing against impossible odds. Rosiernon continued through her silence. Jon Snow, or Stark as he's called now, was a true champion for those who never had plenty. That's why he amassed so many followers and took back his home. He was worth following for them. It didn't matter the odds. With him they had a chance. Stannis saw that in him. I believe that is one of the reasons Jon's loyalty belongs to him, however flawed the man is. Stannis gave Jon something even his father had failed to. Recognition, Dany whispered, finishing Aemon's thought. She frowned for a minute, taking in the old man's words. Realizing the wisdom in it, the fog beginning to clear about Jon Stark, able to see past his stern exterior, to whatever may lie underneath. You can be the one who sees him for he truly is. If you wish. Dany bit her lip, unable to say anything to that, who he truly is. There was much about Jon Stark that was an enigma to her. Aemon helped peel some of that back, and the picture only grew ever more muddled. "Jon Stark," Dany began. "I don't understand the man. I've asked a very simple thing of him, and he refuses. Perhaps that's because he feels he gets nothing in return." Aemon chuckled slightly. "You ask much of him and require a lot, while he receives nothing. Relationships such as this are fueled by reciprocation. Reciprocation is peace, prosperity, a better world." And how does he know this? How do any of those in Westeros know any of this? Unlike those in Essos, they never saw your kindness. Dany realized he had a point. "They can't see it until I win. Niece, please listen to me. You demand that he bend the knee even though you know he won't. Niece, you speak of breaking the wheel, yet you haven't changed since the old ways. As your ancestors did, you demand your enemies bend the knee as if you are the true conqueror. That does nothing towards breaking the wheel that has been our history since the dawn of the Targaryens' reign. Perhaps it's time you begin a different way." Dany hung on the old man's words. It began to make sense. "Uncle, what sort of way? Tell me." "Just as I said, child. Reciprocation. Give him something he requires. Take a step towards an alliance that benefits both sides. I sent grain to his homeland." He nodded. "That was smart, but not essential. You haven't yet even considered him fully yet. You've only thought of yourself and what you require. He is a person as well. In many ways, you're equal." "Equal?" Dany nearly scoffed. "I am a queen. He is but a lord. A lord of a powerful northern house whose fealty you need. Don't think of it as queen and subject. Instead, just two people." "I see." Aemon wouldn't assume to fully understand Jon, but he did know him well. Daenerys was in a place of uncertainty, mainly surrounding the Lord of Winterfell himself. The two of them up to this point had largely caused discord. Yet it could be that together, they could be in great harmony. Unfortunately, it wasn't his place to recommend such a thing as marriage, but deep down it would be a lie for Aemon to say he didn't wish for it. He wished for his niece to be happy. Aemon knew Jon to be decent, which Daenerys deserved at the very least. It could be that this turmoil the two of them found themselves in could just be a storm that would end. The sun could be waiting just through the breach. The warmth might melt the ice surrounding both of their hearts. "But what do I know? I'm just a blind old man." His tiny smirk belied a japing mood. Smiling, Dany leaned forward to kiss his forehead. "Thank you, uncle. You are the wisest among us." "Plenty of people are wise, Daenerys. Very few love you unconditionally," he replied, causing her smile to widen. Blushing from his grandfatherly praise, no torrid embrace from any lover so far could top the warmth given from the love of her uncle. Daenerys sighed. "You know Jon Stark could have saved himself considerable grief had he not appeared mad." Idem's brows furrowed. "How so?" Her uncle was from the Wall, and he wasn't raving insanely about some ancient legend as Jon had been. "You'd know just how mad it is, something about ice monsters north of the Wall." She waved it off, chuckling. Only Aemon didn't join in the laughter. Unseeing eyes hardening and lips curling into a toothless scowl. "Niece," he finally said, feeling every day of his nearly a century of life, "let me suggest the perfect portion of the island that I think you should visit." Hand immediately rushing to cover his eyes. The harsh glare of the sun was welcome as soon as Jon's pupils adjusted. "Hello, old friend." The North and True North were never quite friendly to the white-yellow orb with the clouds that marred the sky there. He had heard from Davos that Blackwater Bay was stormy in the fall and winter months. But today, the sun was out in force. A cloudless day. An auspicious omen. "Move," came the gruff voice of the unsullied captain. The same one that had helped capture him and interrogate him. The 5 other troopers kept their spears ready to take him on if need be. A condition of why he wasn't bound, Jon supposed. If I am to be executed, this isn't auspicious. They could have executed me inside, not by dragonfire. The truth of that left a pit in his stomach. "Where are you taking me?" he demanded in his best, lordly voice. A gruff response came back in Valyrian. He snorted. "What?" Jon suddenly staggered as the unsullied commander shoved him in the back. "Shut it." Wanting to punch the eunuch, Jon obeyed. What gain could there be in attacking? Dragonstone truly was a beautiful place. In a rugged sort of way that Jon couldn't appreciate when first brought here in the dead of night. Vibrant green fields and gardens growing in the volcanic soil were dwarfed by the jet black of the keep and towering Dragonmont. Not the most picturesque location, but Jon loved it. It appealed to him almost from his very blood, such did confuse him. The Unsullied led him down the winding stone stairs. In the distance, he saw the beachhead. One figure stood alone, and he immediately knew it to be Daenerys. With those silver locks, silver hair glinting in the sunlight, blowing in the wind, it could be no one else. So, I suppose Grey Worm cut him off. Our queen summoned you. Touch her. You die. He leveled his spear at Jon. Understand, Stark? Yeah, I fucking understand. There didn't seem to be dragons about. There was a distant screech in the sky, at least not close by. Perhaps this wasn't the execution he'd imagined. Following Grey Worm, Jon walked out onto the sand. The queen had her back to them, but she turned around once she sensed their presence. Jon's gaze was unimpeded. He took her in fully. Of course he'd noticed her beauty. It was impossible not to. Her leather dress was the same that she wore in battle, but without the dark cloak and with more elegant boots. It was rather disarming, showing off her slender, petite figure. There was no doubt that Daenerys Targaryen was one of the great beauties of Westeros, perhaps the world. A seemingly uncharacteristic smile. Ah, Lord Stark, welcome. Was it just him, or did she seem almost happy to see him? Not like I had a choice to be here. Chuckling, Daenerys shrugged. I'd think you'd be happy to get out of that stuffy room. What's this about? Jon asked, looking into the sky, seeing all three dragons overhead. Feeding time? Hardly. I need you able to breathe. Be quite a shame if you passed away suddenly, Dany replied plainly. My children just like to be nearby me. No, I've learned of something that may be of use to you. What's that? Dragon glass. What? Dragon glass? Here? Jon gasped, truly surprised. He stepped forward instinctively, but stopped when the Dothraki raised their blades. Dany held up her hand to halt her blood riders. Yes, Aemon had explained the find to her, and it didn't take an Archmaester to realize the importance of the substance to Jon. As I understand it, you'd wish to forge weapons from it? She offered him a smile, one that very nearly took his breath away. If we want to reach an accord, perhaps this can be a start. What sort of accord? If you're going to ask me to bend, would you like to see the dragon glass? Hard for him to deny, he didn't think she'd lie. Yes, I would. Dany extended her arm to her right, looking down the beachhead. There's a cave entrance just down the shore. I've been assured there's a massive supply waiting to be mined. So what's the point? You going to dangle it in front of my face, only to yank it away? Dany didn't reply, only turning to proceed down the sand towards the supposed cave. Confused, Jon stood still for a few moments. The Dothraki passed by him, every single one staring him down. He figured he should just follow a few moments later. The Blood Riders parted for him to pass through to catch up to Daenerys. Once he got back up to her, she glanced over to him and shook her head. I wonder if you'll ever understand. Understand what? That I'm not out to get you. Perhaps not, but you are out to get something from me, Jon said. That's what bothers me. I want a better world, Lord Stark. She anticipated his scoff. I know you don't trust people that say that, but I do. What would convince you of my genuine desire in this? He raised his eyebrow. Besides letting me go home? A tiny smirk tinged his face, which she noticed. Jon chuckled when she smirked also. As before, it just seemed so easy to let his guard down with her. He had to marshal all of his inner strength, negotiate with Stannis, take your army north to fight the true enemy. You are a very predictable man, Jon Stark. Nodding, Jon absent-mindedly gazed at the cliffs before a bat-like shape shot past him. He felt his heart race, years of combat experience, and lessons from the one terrifying day where he had almost lost his entire army kicking in. Reacting in a split second as the green beast roared, Jon moved to crouch, only to slip on the wet sand, falling on his ass. It happened in a split second, head turning around, Gainsay found Jon Stark, sprawled out on the soaked sand with his jaw fallen slightly, clearly shocked about the blunder he had endured, one that in battle would have likely killed him. Gradually, her lips quivered, violet eyes twinkling in mirth. Daenerys finally started to giggle. At his resultant glare, the giggles burst into full-blown laughter. Jon's eyes narrowed further. Seven hells. It's not fucking funny. Daenerys tried to clutch her side, recovering her composure, only to fail miserably. brooding Jon Stark, the mighty wrath of the North. She hadn't laughed this much in ages. It felt freeing. Joyous even, beaten by a patch of wet sand. Finally pushing onto his knees, breeches drenched in the scratchy sand, Jon grumbled, glaring one more time at the Dragon Queen. Daenerys Targaryen was a striking woman, no doubt, but here, happy and carefree. She looked incandescent. I do owe you greatly, Jon Stark. Dany wiped a tear from her eye, sighing pleasurably as the last giggles left her. That laugh was sorely needed, thank you. He snorted, smirking softly despite himself. Glad I could be of service to someone after my capture, Jon remarked dryly. Hearing a loud grunt, he looked up only to find the green dragon. It rested upon the cliffs, wingtips folded and claws gripping to the rocks jutting off of the edge of the grassy plain. It bobbed and weaved, staring at him with bright amber eyes. The gaze was intense, to say the least. Do I have to worry about that? Shifting from Jon to Rhaegal, Dany chuckled. Rhaegal? No, you don't. Jon raised an eyebrow. The monster has a name. For some reason he assumed them to be dehumanized demons summoned into battle, not beings with names. Nevertheless, there was no difference to him in Ruziog's expression from the Black One that very nearly roasted him alive. Forgive me if I don't believe you. I know Rhaegal better than anyone. Lord Stark, that is not an expression of rage. Her smile faded into a scowl. I resent you thinking the worst of my children. Children? Now this was fascinating. Morbidly fascinating in the sense he was more likely to end up a charred roast. But fascinating nonetheless. Nothing but death follows those beasts. Her palms balled into fists, nails digging into her skin. They are not beasts. They are my children. The only ones I will ever have. Voice taking a melancholic quality to it, Daenerys looked up at the green dragon. If you must know, Rhaegal respects you. He's always been sensitive. From what I know, he can sense a noble heart in you, Jon Stark, even if clouded in ignorance and brooding. And how am I ignorant, Your Grace? He didn't mean to be completely sarcastic. It just came out that way. Dragons, they are keen creatures. They are intelligent and sensitive. More than just mindless monsters that burn everything in their path. That is not him, and that is not me either. Silence from Jon, Dany turned to look at her dragon. Not her mount, but her child all the same. Jakagon Vase, Idragon, Uhatresi. The Valyrian flowed like a melody from her lips. Jon, blinking at how the words meant to calm a dragon, calmed even him. Nikakese, Sagan, Sakas. Eyes trained on Daenerys, Rhaegal shifted to look back at Jon, jerking his head back in a hoot at the dour norther before slowly turning, lumbering off to where he and his brothers had made their nest on the island of their mighty ancestors. Silently, the two continued their walk. Jon remaining a fair distance away from the queen in order not to spook the Dothraki. Only children? He finally said after several minutes. Daenerys blinked. Excuse me? You said the dragons were the only children you'd ever have. Not that Jon was accepting of the idea that dragons could be children, but that was a different issue. What did you mean by that? How could she have slipped up like that? To the master of war, to her greatest enemy, no less. The information of her barren womb able to destroy her and her legitimacy. Daenerys wanted to kick herself. She wasn't that stupid, but for some reason, the secret tumbled out. Damn Jon Stark's ability to disarm her. As such, she improvised. I am not married, and there is no man out there worthy of me. For now, they are my only children. Jon was confused a bit, barely comprehending her meaning. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Eucrid's words would bounce around his head every so often. This moment was no different. I see, he ended up saying. No suitors banging at the door of the Dragon Queen. Then he laughed and gestured towards the dragons. I wonder why. Gain smirked, locking eyes with him. He did the same. Good thing they were walking on sand, not much to trip over. They weren't watching where they were going. For a moment, it was just the two of them. Two people on a stroll, sharing a look that said, what if? But it was Jon that broke eye contact first, for he knew his mind was in the wrong place, or so he thought. Dany missed his glance immediately, her brow furrowed hard. Where's this cave? Jon asked, breaking the silence. Dainsay didn't answer right away, instead, watching the ocean waves crash down for longer than she realized. The salty air never felt better than in that moment. Finally, she did answer. It can't be much further up the shore. Thank the gods, said Jon, huffing. I haven't walked this much in ages. Been cooped up too long. Perhaps with good behavior you'd be allowed to roam more, Dany proposed with raised eyebrows. You must be stir-crazy. I consider myself the model prisoner. Haven't tried to escape once. The fact that he pretty much couldn't escape wasn't lost on either. They followed the curve of the inlet, the cliffs above growing higher and higher as they cast a shadow far into the ocean waves. He wanted to chuckle at the irony of it all. When Sansa always spoke of her gallant prince marrying her and spiriting her away someplace beautiful, many times it was at a glittering beach under a cloudless day. Here I am, walking down a sandy beach with a beautiful queen. When boiled down simply, it sounded like a fucking dream come true. But reality always interceded. He was no gallant warrior like Ceradovan the Dragon Knight, and Daenerys was no stunning queen that he was here to romance and sweep off her feet. I am a prisoner, she is my jailer, and the world is still the shit one we all know, Daenerys said. She wanted to change it, but even when following Stannis Jon had no trust in any ruler to do so, save my family, stop the dead. It was all Jon could ever hope of doing, joy, love, children. They were never in the cards for the bastard of Winterfell, father's name or no. Lord Stark, her smooth, silky voice drew him out of his brooding thoughts, the ones that everyone said were exactly his father's. I think this is it. Blinking, Jon saw a curving lip in the cliff face. No massive chasm that would allow for a boat anchorage, but certainly one where men could enter two abreast. Strange, she raised an eyebrow. Strange to have imagined Maester Aemon was a prince once, living in the Red Keep, and here, to him, the kindly old Maester was simply one of the brothers of the Watch. If a wise figure that was worthy of respect and listening to. A couple of Unsullied were stationed at the mouth of the cave. They lit a torch for them. Dany decided to carry it herself. Dany turned around when her blood riders tried to follow. Vod tat, vojadat, she said sharply. Aintio zin sandi. There seemed to be a discussion, but Jon, of course, couldn't understand a word. Hearing the command, the Dothraki backed up a bit. Though their heated gaze didn't leave Jon, he wasn't sure why Dany forbade them from coming. Glad for it, regardless. So Jon followed Daencio outside, glow from the outside, growing weaker the deeper they walked. The two of them walked side by side, mere inches apart. Closer than they'd ever been, Jon unable to avoid her scent. Taken a bit off guard, not in a bad way, actually, he liked it. A scent foreign to him. Something from across the sea, he assumed. Sweet vanilla and saffron with a small tinge of smoke. He wouldn't mind breathing it more often. It didn't take long to reach a more open space, where they could separate. Not that either jumped at the opportunity, a chamber wide reaching taller than they could see. It was the walls that caught their eyes. Slowly, Jon approached for a closer look. Dany followed to provide light. What do you see? Torch brought almost directly at the wall, the firelight reflected off the stone into Jon's eyes. My gods! Jon was absolutely stunned. This is dragon glass. Moving the torch to the side, he saw the cave spread out indefinitely. A whole mountain of it. Watching his almost reverent reaction to the immense walls of glittering volcanic stone stretching endlessly in all directions, Daenerys couldn't help but smile herself. Not just at the opportunity, but also seeing some form of genuine emotion from the Lord of Winterfell. His face had lost the brooding hardness, the stress lines of a life of hardship almost equal to what she had suffered. He looked magnificent. If only we weren't foes, Jon Stark. There must be shiploads of it, he breathed, running his hands along the smooth dragonglass. To think he had risked his life trying to rescue a few spearheads and daggers at Hardhome. Enough for a dozen armies. Anna mentioned this place to me, Dany admitted, walking around. He thought you might like to see it. If he said for her to bring me here, he would have wanted me to see what's within, could have just been the dragonglass or something else entirely. He was right, Jon laughed. With a few fingers, he brushed against the cold obsidian, making sure it seemed real. You seem bewildered. I am, Jon gasped. I've never seen this much. Or, in this state, I've only ever seen a handful of daggers and spearheads. This is something else entirely. A gift from the gods themselves. But yes, this is what we need. Dany felt content, seeing Jon Stark happy for once. For some reason, it brought her a joy she hadn't felt before. almost like seeing the freedmen drop their collars before her as they cheered for their freedom, but more intimate. Daenerys was a queen, however, and thus had to think like a queen. You seem to think the dragon glass is free. Jon's hand dropped from the wall, falling to his side. Oh, here we go again. I want to give it to you? I am offering it. The cave suddenly felt colder, the Lord of Winterfell's brooding exterior back. But this isn't the gift of foodstuffs. As a queen, I can't simply give something this valuable to you for nothing. He turned to face her, pulling a face. Just when I thought we were turning a corner, you take it back there. How many times do I have to say it? Do you honestly think I'll ever change my mind? Did you think a grand gesture such as this would do the trick? Think you can force me to hand you my home while you reciprocate fuck all? She hadn't at all committed to fighting the dead. Reciprocation. The word hit Dany in the head like someone threw a rock. She might have fallen. Jon stepped closer to her, and she didn't stop him. You only think of yourself, he told her. I have my home to think of. It's all resting on my shoulders. I can't slip up. Why should I hand my kingdom over to you? What reason do I have? I'm open to suggestions. What do you want? Dany asked him then. You want to go home? I know. Is there anything else? Her words froze him, though he rocked back away from her. She continued, I realize I've been difficult. I'm sorry. I've only ever done this one way. Normally it doesn't take this long. No one has ever fought against me as you have. Typically I just burn them, those who rebel. But I don't want to burn you. For the first time in a long time, Jon was at a loss for words. She approached him, nearly getting into his face, but her expression, while regal, wasn't that of a hardened monarch. It was pleading, soft, almost. I want you to join me. I want the North to join me. No man that her uncle so respected was unworthy. He is the ally you need, as Missandei had once said. Tell me how I can do that. They locked eyes again. I'm flattered, he said after a moment's silence, but even if you manage to turn me to your side, the North will not accept you. She narrowed her eyes. Where the liege lord goes, the vassals follow. I may not have been raised in Westeros, but I know its customs. How else did I secure the Dornish and the Reach? You forget that House Turley did not obey the call of Olenna Tyrell. That's how you lost the Reach. Jon enjoyed the moment's outwitting of the Dragon Queen before his face fell again. How could I convince my people to follow you? You're a foreign queen who held me captive and burned numerous Northmen in battle. I am not who they said I am. I am not who you think I am, Daenerys said, stomping her foot. How can I help you understand that? Not sure, Jon shrugged, shaking his head. Maybe not killing my friends with dragonfire, not holding me captive for weeks. I question why you wonder of my mistrust of you. Just when I thought we may be reaching common ground, Dany huffed. You know just where our common ground lies. Unfortunately, you lack the strength to deliver it. Dany's eyes scanned over the hardened black rock under the sheen of torchlight. It looked beautiful. She sighed. I have little need for this obsidian. Jon exhaled, wanting to just sit on the ground, close his eyes, and retreat into the serene blackness of sleep. I'm tired, Your Grace. Jon crossed his arms, then gestured to the dragon glass. You said it yourself. You don't need the obsidian. Ship it to Winterfell, where my people can begin fashioning it into weapons. What reason do I have to do that? Daintier raised an eyebrow at him, hand on her hip. Why should I give you something you want when you have no intention of returning the favor? What you ask of me is ridiculous in comparison. Dany had no reply forthcoming. Her great-uncle's words to her echoed in her brain. She pursed her lips, then walked over to Jon. In her hand, she held out the torch to him. He took it hesitantly. The flames were the only thing separating them. I have nothing left to say I haven't already said, she told him. If you want to further argue, I have no strength remaining for it. I'd hoped we could move forward. Together. Together? The North can't give you what you want. He gave her a grim frown. I can't give you what you want. Dany wanted to scoff, but didn't, at seeing the pain in his eyes. I've defeated many enemies, she said softly. Yet, you, Jon Stark, are the most infuriating yet. A sigh. And I simply keep coming back. Why is that? Why do I want your support and loyalty as above all the rest? Jon aimed to reply, but something caught his eye behind Daenerys, Down on a nearby wall, there looked to be a space to step through. A gap. With the torch, Jon approached the open space. Using the light, he confirmed his suspicions. Hey, there's a way through right here. Frowning, Dany felt as if he was making a jest. Yet when she examined it for herself, indeed there was a space wide enough for them to squeeze through. You want to go through there? Jon looked back at her and shrugged, saying, Might as well. Don't worry. If there's any snarks, I'll let them eat you first. Then he tried to duck down, but something stopped him. A hand on his back. He froze solid. Sliding by, Dany grabbed the torch on her way. Don't worry, I've handled much worse than snarks. I'll go ahead. Jon was left stunned as she adeptly shimmied through the gap. He definitely didn't expect her to touch him. It wasn't like a command. Instead, a soft request. He followed after her as quickly as he could. The gap was tight, but they both fit inside. She made it through in front of him. He heard her vocal reaction before he even got through the gap. Oh, my, come see this. What? Jon asked before he fully reached the open space. As soon as he straightened himself next to her, he saw exactly what. It wasn't dragonglass. The walls and ceilings were just a normal volcanic rock weathered long ago by the sea. What's so odd, the Dragon Queen, and Jon once he emerged into the antechamber, was what adorned the simple stone. A vast array of swirls, some a simple white while others an almost glittering gold and silver painted on the walls. Geometric shapes as small as a finger to as large as a full-grown horse, weathered slightly from age, preserved from the ravages of wind and rain being on the rain shadow side of the island. And right in the center was a vast spiral. Surrounded by shapes of animals and trees, it was marked with various concentric circles that ended in jutting tendrils of dark gold paint. I know this image, Jon said quietly. This is what is placed around all the heart trees. It had been with Robb, climbing the trees in the Godswood when they first saw the patterns in the rocks. Their father had scolded them not to disturb. It's a symbol of the old gods. The Angels controlled this island during the days of old Valyria, Daenerys murmured, amazed by the simple beauty of these drawings. This had to have been done during the era of the First Men. Violet eyes glittering in the torchlight, she gazed at each of them. Before then, she heard Jon say simply behind her, watching a specific painting quite intently. This was a safe place, separated from the mainland by Blackwater Bay. It's why the Valyrians picked it, and why the First Men picked it. Stepping next to Jon, their shoulders touching, Dany saw two sets of white lines drawn in the shape of men. One a trio of crude, armored figures, the others mere outlines of far smaller ones, almost like children. Children of the forest? Aye, the natural enemy of the First Men. They warred for centuries. They don't seem like enemies here. He looked down at her, then surprised by how beautiful she was in the low orange light. He tried not to let it bother him too much. Only moments later did he find it would be a challenge, though he had a reply. That's because they joined forces against a common enemy. Shifting the torch, shadows dancing upon the walls, he settled on another patch of wall, against them. It was as if the temperature dropped to a freezing chill, one Daenerys never experienced before, and taking a look at what Jon showed her, it explained it all. What is that? That is death itself. That is the threat I've been speaking of. 4 figures, spindly as skeletons. But the random First Man that drew them had captured the haunting details better than anyone Jon had ever seen, as if transported directly to the shores of Hardhome, a sight he'd not soon forget. The 3 in the back had their maws gaping in silent screams, ice weapons leveled as if they were planning on charging. But the first, the horns on its head, frown on its face, and long spear embedded into an unseen ground, was the Night King. In the flesh, so to speak, Dany shivered involuntarily. Gods. Trust me, they are more frightening in person. They can't be real, she murmured, more to convince herself than Jon. At that moment, Daenerys felt weak, powerless, as if all of her armies, all her titles, all her dragons meant nothing, and she was back to being the scared little girl at the mercy of her brother and Robert's assassins. Against an enemy that can wake the dead, though she wouldn't dare show any of this outwardly, internally, her insides were screaming. You see? Jon laughed, somewhat unable to believe what he was seeing. They were here. They carved these. Long ago. The children and the First Men together. If people and small creatures learn to work together, why can't we? Dany asked him with soft eyes. They were just like us. They were enemies. But they set aside their differences. But the children and the first men both understood the threat. They all knew what needed to be done. How little everything else mattered, Jon said. You just want the throne? It's not all I want. I've never known what you want. You're nigh impossible to read, Jon said, shrugging. You're a queen that only talks about your birthright. The Iron Throne, hard to tell about anything else. I barely know anything else about you. Would you like to? She whispered, her voice suddenly low. To know more? Jon noticed her tone change. Didn't know what to think about it. For the first time since he'd known her, the outer shell began to crack. He began to be able to see what she hid underneath her queenly persona. He saw her trying to reach out. He wanted to take her hand, but they didn't touch. If not for the fire of the torch, they may have pushed closer to one another. The heat between them was the only thing holding them back. Yes, I would. What would you like to know? This type of thing wasn't Jon's strong suit. What's your favorite fruit? She blinked, lips quivering. Really? That's what you ask me, Jon Stark. Hand perched on her hip. Dany couldn't help but giggle. If you must know, my favorite is peaches. I'll take your word on it. Never ate one. Not many peaches in the north. There was one tree growing in the Godswood. Not that Lady Stark would let me eat them. Jon shrugged. There was little that Lady Stark allowed him to begin with. Ned Stark's wife? Dany noticed there were some issues there, but she decided not to press. Anything else? Jainiat met her gaze, simply watching her, studying her, the supposed monster that burned his men, but yet captivated him all the same. That invaded his every thought, drew him to her for good or for ill. It didn't seem like the Dragon Queen before him. Why did you do it? Why did you spare me? She blinked. What do you mean? You could have easily killed me like you did the Blackfish. Could have let your sellsword torture me or your dragon just burn me right there. The Lannisters would have Stannis did to his enemies. Jon was loyal to Stannis, but he couldn't lie and say the man was perfect. Why did you let me live? Daenerys felt floored with the question, stepping back, sucking in a breath. It really made her think. You were a hostage, a valuable one. Horse shit, Jon barked. You had my army, every lord in the north before you, and the Tullys. I was Stannis' top battle commander, too dangerous a threat to keep alive. Had the roles been reversed, Stannis would have killed you in a heartbeat. His eyes narrowed as she simply stared up at him, eyes wide. Why did you spare me? He ground out. Closing her eyes, Dany shook softly. There was a time where his insolence and arrogance made her want to just hand him over to Daenio. But then Drogon, I don't know. A snort. I think you know, you just don't want to answer. Do I want her to answer? There was silence. Would you have killed me? He jerked back up at her words. If the roles were reversed, Stannis would have... Not Stannis, you! Daenerys had never felt so vulnerable. She was ashamed of being so weak, but she couldn't help it. There was something about him. Please tell me. I don't think I could hurt you, Jon admitted. They both drew close then. Unable to stop himself, Jon brought his hand up toward her face. Dany did nothing to stop him. Two of his fingers twirled around a loose lock of her hair hanging in front of her face. She exhaled a breath she didn't know. She held. Even if I wanted to. Neither of them spoke after that. The crackling of the torch became the only noise evident. She was just a few inches shorter than him, looking up at him. Slowly, the Dragon Queen nibbled on her lip. A queen with carnal desire by the way she looked at him with those violet eyes. He wondered if he could ever find the strength to deny her, or even if he wanted to, or if that would happen at all. To that point, he'd only pushed down any thoughts of that sort about her. But then, he allowed himself to dream. So much so, he instinctively leaned forward. She gladly did the same. Katsalizi. The guttural call of the Blood Riders echoed through the cave. Hashir Davra. He pulled back, Daenzior's eyes fluttering at the loss of contact. Jon drew back as if coming to his senses. She felt an acute sense of loneliness, but forced herself to shrug it off. Whatever moment between them, one she still had no idea about, was clearly over. Sek, she replied, a little irritated. Ankia tiek, memias as. Dainty turned back to Jon. We should go. There was no room for disagreement. By no means was Jon a womanizer. Far from it. His lone love had been a wildling who essentially claimed him for herself. He had no complaints. What he felt now was entirely different. Couldn't she do better than him? A former bastard from the north, what could he give her? She's a queen. She can have anyone. Did she want him? There did seem to be something between them, something tangible. He felt it. He thought she did too. If not for the interruption, who knows? He might have kissed her. He wouldn't have had any complaints. She probably wouldn't have either. Only now, it seemed as if he'd never know. In the end, she'd said all she needed to say. There was nothing more to say. The argument would last until the end of time. Unfortunately, she didn't have that much time to spare. The decision made itself. While the castle slept, she readied her things. She had been abundantly clear after all that she was serious. If Sansa woke up to find her sister missing, there shouldn't be any guesses as to where or why. It had been a long time coming. There was nothing stopping her now. Nothing will ever stand in her way again. Not even family, for nothing means more than crossing off names. Her purpose will be fulfilled. Instead of saying goodbye, she decided to just leave. If she saw Sansa again, it'd be more of the same. She had no energy left for a discussion in which no one understands her side of it. But the thought of leaving without a trace left her feeling empty. She thought of Rickon more than anything, so before her silent exodus, she wrote a note. A small slip of paper sticking out from under her pillow. The same morning, a handmaiden found the note. The lack of Arya's presence was somewhat alarming. With just the note in her place, for the next hour, word passed through the castle until the little note was placed in Sansa's hands. In a way, she was surprised to hear the news. After all, Arya did tell her she would leave, though at the time Sansa wasn't sure she'd do it. But she was wrong. Nevertheless, she examined the note. It read, "To whom it may concern, the North remembers, sleep did not come easy to Jon. Hells, it barely came at all the last night. Whenever he closed his eyes, dragonfire burned underneath his lids. The dancing flames of the battlefields torturing his soul. Thousands of his men dying, his own comrade in arms burned alive before his very eyes. Throughout the night, after mere minutes, he would wake draped in sweat, skin burning, and heart with invisible shards stabbing through. The latter not from the past, Melisandre's vision. The end of the line, everything else had come true. Only pain and death existing in his life since the Dragon Queen had entered his life. Hours of laying on his cot, restless and sweltering, brought him upright. Giving up the idea of sleep. How can I sleep? Not with his mind punishing him. The whirlwind assaulting him after what had nearly happened in the caves. For my resolve was weak. He needed to be honest with himself. Jon knew he had nearly kissed Daenerys Targaryen. That was what would have undoubtedly occurred had the Dothraki arriving not caused his senses to flood back. The faces of all the dead flashing in his mind and forcing him to pull away, knowing that he was betraying them by even somewhat compromising with Daenerys. "Why did I do it?" Jon said into the darkness of his chambers. "How could I let myself be so weak?" The Lord of Winterfell remembered what he thought at the time, of being worthy of the sudden infatuation with her beauty. Could it have just been about his isolation and the euphoria of seeing the dragon glass? Yet, even then Jon knew his rationalization to be a lie, a comforting blanket to wrap around his body and assuage the guilt he felt for the dead. There was no escaping the fact that at that moment in the cave, he wanted to kiss her. Nor was there any escape that even now he imagined what that kiss would feel like. The door to the chambers swung open, unsullied guard stone-faced. "Visitor," he barked in a very heavy accent. Jon groaned. He didn't think he could take seeing Daenerys in the state he was in. But while it was a Targaryen that entered, the dragon in question was far less beautiful yet far more welcome in the moment. At the stoop and wrinkled face, Jon stood up, smiling. Master Reimagined, a larger figure squeezed in behind him. Jon's jaw dropped slightly, shocked to see his old friend. "Sam." A grunt left his lips as the acolyte enveloped him in a tight embrace. "Thank the gods above, you're alive," Sam blubbered. "I had thought the worst for so long." Hearing Jon wheeze, Aemon chuckled. "Sam, my boy, put him down before he suffocates." Blushing red, Sam released him, smiling sheepishly. Jon inhaled deeply, filling his lungs. I'm happy to see you too, Sam. But please let me breathe. They both chuckled. Maester Aemon, he approached the older man. Please, have a seat. He guided his literal mentor to the cot, easing him down. I heard that you were here, but was in despair that I would actually see you. Oh, dear boy, I asked to see you. Your sister Sansa did send me for you after all. Yes, I had heard Sansa had you sent here, though I don't know if you'll find any success, said Jon. At this rate, I'll die on this island of old age. Don't fret, I think you'll be just fine, Sam said, smiling. I met with the Queen. She was engaging. You can say it, Sam. She's pretty. A blush. Unavoidable. Yes, I've noticed, Jon relented. It was difficult not to notice. He wasn't made of stone. He had eyes. Daenerys was likely the most beautiful woman he'd ever laid eyes on. His dislike of her ended up being the only thing stopping her from disarming him with her every breath. Over the last few days, he'd finally allowed himself to not be bothered by it, that he liked looking at her, that he wouldn't mind looking at her all the time. Impossible to ignore. It was rather difficult to explain what I needed to tell her earlier. The beauty combined with her focus solely on me, my bones trembled, Sam said, recounting the interaction in his mind. You had a message for her? Yes, but that's not important right now, Sam smirked. We're here for Maester Aemon, but I'll let the two of you talk more privately. He smiled at Jon. We'll catch up more later. I'll just be outside. Wordlessly, he got up and left Jon with Maester Aemon. Even at my age, I do have a mission of sorts, Aemon sported a toothy grin. I'd like to solve this issue if I can. Master Aemon, I don't know what you can do for me. It's all up to Daenerys. I'm not talking about that issue. I'm talking about you and her. He frowned, looking away. She's my captor and I'm her prisoner. There's nothing else to talk about. You know that's not true. And what if you're right? Jon snapped bitterly. You're a Targaryen, of course. You're here to defend her. All his confusion, his self-loathing and brooding, it manifested now as anger. What she did was indefensible. Did you think that when you almost kissed her, when you wished you had kissed her, those times were almost the entire night? Though blind, it seemed, Aemon could see into his soul. She is my blood, dear boy, my family, but those at the wall are my family too. He leaned forward. I haven't heard it explicitly from you, so tell me why you hate my niece. Jon scoffed. I would think it obvious. She enchants me, and I have no idea why. Beauty. He had met many beautiful women, and only two had truly enchanted him. Ironically enough, he was a prisoner both times. Humor an old man, Jon. A sigh left his lips. I'm no stranger to kings and conquerors. Yet she speaks of breaking the wheel, except she's done nothing but perpetuate it so far. Breaking the wheel? Something she talked about doing in Slaver's Bay. Ending the cycle of oppression for the common folk, but Daenerys is just another spoke. Owen raised an eyebrow. I would think freeing slaves would show one out of the realm of the past. For Slaver's Bay, perhaps, but this isn't Slaver's Bay. The small folk of Westeros are free and just want to live and be happy. All the Dragon Queen has done is burn them with dragon fire. The Maester pursed his lips, nodding thoughtfully. Aegon, Maga, the sides of the dance, all use dragons and most are viewed unfavorably for just that reason. But what of Tywin Lannister? He served in 3 wars in which massive atrocities happened. The Boltons, their sigil was of an atrocity. Robert Baratheon laughed at the corpses of children. He sought not to diminish what Daenerys had done, but add context. Make Jon think. Jon shook his head. That is different, Master Aemon. They are but men. Daenerys, she has dragons. A field of battle, awash with flame. The smell of burnt meat as vividly present as it was in the moment. His voice grew hard. She has no compunction when using them on her enemies. But Stannis did it, Aemon said. You saw it. He burned Mance. On the boat ride over, Sam told me of some current ongoings of the country. He told me Stannis had burned Olenna after taking Highgarden. Let me ask you this, my boy. What danger was she to him after taking her castle? There was little Jon could do to rationalize those decisions, and gods did he oppose them. He gave Mance the mercy of an arrow to the heart, while he knew in his heart that had he been with Stannis at Highgarden, the side of mercy would have had him among their ranks. I can't speak in support of that, but one person at the stake is different than a flying beast that can incinerate thousands at will. They are not beasts. They are my children. Children! Two amber eyes trained on him. Did they seem truly as monstrous as he saw ghosts to be? If House Stark, or House Baratheon, or Lannister had dragons, wouldn't they use them similarly? He received no answer. Jon merely staring at him, digesting the implication. In all fairness to you, Maester, he finally said, but they have no dragon blood, nor any dragons. I used to admire the conquerors, the great dragon lords of the past. But after seeing them in action, he shook his head, not willing to relive the fire. Daenerys was set on this path long ago, Amin confessed. She is the standard bearer of our house, all that's left of what was once a great dynasty. Nothing will stop her now. She will do what she deems necessary. Before Jon could speak, Amin reached out and grabbed his hand. But only what's necessary. He knit his brows in confusion. What do you mean? Jon, my boy, she could have burned you all, Aemon told him. But she didn't. Instead, she spared you and your friends that survived. She didn't have to do that. She gave you a choice. Oh, please, Jon pulled a face and rolled his eyes, pulling his hand away. With a fire-breathing dragon hanging over you, there is no choice. Isn't that just an easy choice? There was a choice, and it was clear. Maester Aemon, you weren't there, Jon sighed. The only one of my men brave enough to stand was the Blackfish, who Daenerys had the nerve to burn to ash in front of everyone. I'll never forgive her for that. The Maester sighed. Was it really brave, Jon? Choosing death when one doesn't have to? And it wasn't even protecting his family either. I know because I've faced such a choice. He remembered declining the throne, protecting Aek from a succession crisis. Sarkran and Tully had a nephew who has a family. Wouldn't it have been braver for him to swallow his pride and instead guided his nephew through lordship? Doesn't matter. Honor above all. Dying like that isn't brave, Jon. It's foolish. Your lord father knew better. Jon's eyes narrowed. Don't talk about my father. But Ottoman was on a roll. We all know what happened, he confessed in order to be set free. Regardless of how mad Joffrey was to kill him, he set aside his honor to live for his family, reaching forward to give Jot a friendly pat on the arm. He was relieved he didn't jerk away. Think of your family. Wouldn't they have been better served with your father alive? In essence, Jon completely understood what Axelman was saying, but that didn't make it easier to imagine it without feeling deeply saddened. Had not been for Joffrey's madness, his lord father would have lived. It would have changed everything. Robb wouldn't have died at the twins. Sansa and Arya wouldn't have been separated or endured what they had to. Perhaps his father might have finally told him about his mother, had they seen each other again. Had the roles been reversed, you and the Blackfish, would you have made the same choice? Preserve your honor or live on for your house. If you made such a foolish choice, your family would never forgive you. It's needless. It was pointless for Brynden to give up his life. No gained anything. Not even him, for he died anyway. Jon admired Brynden. He'd hoped they might have developed a stronger relationship. Daenerys put a stop to that. But Jon couldn't deny Aemon's statements. Jon didn't know what he would have done, having a dragon stare him down with murderous intent. He did know that he clouded that moment in sheer anger towards Daenerys without recognizing Brynden's part of it. Regardless of the motivation of choices, Sir Brynden made one. Aemon resumed, surely he knew the outcome of refusing to bend the knee. Do you truly blame Daenerys for acting on her word? Grim Jon stared at him. I blame her for roasting my friend in front of my eyes. But his tone held no anger, merely hollow. Perhaps my niece was foolish to have offered him such a choice. Perhaps Sir Brynden was foolish to take such a fate, but it is the world we live in. He put up two hands as if a scale. If not a dragon, then the blade of an executioner, as poor Eddard Stark endured, or the stake, as Mance Rayder endured. He could hear Jon wince at that. Tied to a stake while regular fire roasts one alive, that is far more excruciating pain, is it not? What could one say to that? Brynden died instantly while Mance suffered such agony. Jon took pity and delivered a mercy blow to the heart. Arryn loved Jon as he had said to Sam on the boat. The boy reminded him so much of his beloved brother. He didn't wish to bring him anguish or self-doubt. Just get him in the right mind to see. Often you speak of Stannis as the best option, saying he's nothing like Daenerys. Did he not offer Mance Rayder the very same choice my niece offered you and your men, for the same reasons as Brynden Mance refused? But it meant absolutely nothing. They both died for nothing. It was pointless. Grief filled his gaze. They didn't deserve to die. I'm sorry, Jon, Aemon continued, reaching for his hand again. Jon met him halfway, as soft as he could. Mance and Brynden were two men you respected greatly. Still, they didn't have to die. It was them that chose it. It wasn't them who demanded the choice, Jon croaked softly. Daenerys was the one who killed Brynden. But it wasn't her that forced the action. Old and stooped, Aemon looked every year he was alive, blind, withered, a husk of a prince of a mighty house. But his mind was still as sharp as when he was a young maester, and it showed. Even the free folk knelt, so it wasn't as if the choice was hard to understand. But why did Danae give you the opportunity to? There was silence, a pregnant pause, giving her prisoners what had to be a long time to convince a recalcitrant wildling to bend the knee, when she could have easily just killed him right there. Is that not the definition of restraint? Aemon chuckled. You seem to only see Daenerys through a lens that's been given to you. Try to develop your own understanding of her. Don't let outside forces affect your perception. Deep down, Jon felt immense guilt for both, for allowing each to be brought into harm's way, for them being given the choice of their honor or their lives. And yet, he didn't blame Stannis for Mance, but did for Daenerys. Why was that? What caused him to be such a hypocrite? He knew the answer. Anyone who knows a dragon would know how much death they would cause in battle. It was just too much power to wield. That could turn even the strongest will to madness. Sighing, Aemon tapped his fingers together. While he had dreamed for so long to feel a dragon's scales under his palms, any with the blood of Akhathien the Conqueror knew of how they were used to bring ruin to their house. Not the dragons. Men riding them did. A tool is a tool, a weapon is a weapon. A dragon is not a weapon, it is a harbinger of death. Jon had seen it firsthand. Anyone who uses one condones the greatest sort of brutality. Your brother used his direwolf in a similar way. That hit close to home. The famous young wolf and Grey Wind, terrors of Westermen, different only in degree. He coughed, hacking up specks of phlegm into a rag he carried. Jon leaned forward. Should I fetch Sam? He waved him off. No, it's quite all right. Coughing again into the rag, Aemon's breaths grew raspy. But his voice still held resolve. Did not Tywin Lannister utilize the mountain that rides to engage in such brutality? One born not out of necessity, but out of convenience. The death of my family, women and mere babes. To send a message. Children dying, innocents dying, all of it weighed on Jon. I've seen enough death, Master Aemon. Grief, sorrow, pain. The only one who welcomes it is the Night King. More meat for his army. I just wish Daenerys could see that. I think she does. The Lord of Winterfell felt tired, sick of it all, the anger long having left him. Then why does she continue to spill blood so extensively? That woman in the caves, small and soft. Jon felt like she would understand the futility of war, of bloodshed. Perhaps he couldn't understand how she and the Dragon Queen could be the same person. Leaning back, Aemon rubbed his arms, putting warmth into them. I can't answer for Daenerys' mind, only that she has suffered as much as you have. But I do know something about war. In war there will be deaths. All that can be done is to spare the ones we can. I would have spared them, Brynden and Mance, Jon said quietly, his last bit of condemnation to Daenerys. I would have shown mercy. Perhaps what you say is true. Their deaths didn't need to happen. They made their own choices, but it also could have been easily avoided. Stannis could have stopped it beforehand, and Daenerys didn't need to burn Brynden. You may think you wouldn't, but despite the goodness in you, that only carries someone so far. It only takes one moment to change a life. Were the roles reversed, you may have acted similarly. I wouldn't have, Jon was sure. Aemon smiled. Unseeing eyes were glassy with tears. You are a good man, Jon Stark. Unlike Alysir Thorne or all the men that gave advice to his father, such a statement was the greatest praise. But this world, can you truly blame Daenerys for choosing the opposite tactic? She never had a father's love. The care of a sibling or blood brothers that would die for you, Jon, compared to most, was lucky that way. So was Aemon. He never knew one day of his youth without the love of his brothers and uncles. A Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing, and she's been alone for far longer than mercy dictates. Then he coughed, wheezing from his lungs to the point of pain by the hard frown across the old man's face. Jon rose to try to comfort him. The noise must have carried through the door, because moments later, Sam burst into the room. Somewhat panicked. "I think it's time for you to rest, Maester. You've had a long day." Nodding, Aemon allowed the acolyte to haul him up. Before they left, Sam looked back to Jon and said, "Whites died of fire, do they not?" Then the door shut, leaving Jon alone once more. Jon sat back in his chair, trying to properly allow Maester Aemon's wisdom to permeate his mind. Many things had been said. In the end, he felt himself see Daenerys in a different way. Perception of her truly muddled by outside forces. Yet, he had seen plenty for himself. The person he saw burn thousands seemed separate from the woman he witnessed in the Dragonglass Cave, like two completely different people. But in reality, it was just Daenerys. He wanted more from the woman in the cave. Aemon had allowed him to see her from a different perspective, her side. While he didn't agree with it, he understood it. They'd been running in circles for a while, except it felt like they met in the middle in the cave. He wanted to go back there with her. The middle, where they both stood on even ground, with no one to watch over them. At the same time, he couldn't forget what he'd seen, likely couldn't even if he wanted to. That black dragon sweeping over the battlefield, fire shooting from its mouth. It was etched into his mind forever. Somehow, though, he'd try to set that aside. For the good of the North, Aemon was right. Daenerys was a powerhouse he could have on his side. The Night King would get there before he knew it. Fire kills whites. Perhaps it was worth it to work it out with Daenerys, despite their differences, but 7 hells it would be hard. Suddenly, his wrath was lessened. He took a deep breath and buried it. Not forever, for wrath might help him in the coming wars. Below decks, Davos, Melisandre, the captain and his first mate gathered around a table. On top laid a drawn map of Dragonstone. A lantern hung from the ceiling, swaying from side to side as the ship cruised over rough waves. "The only option is to seek in," Davos sighed, rubbing his face to provide some relief. "Only some. Not likely we could walk in the front gates without being littered with arrows." "You know Dragonstone well," Melisandre said. "You know a secret way in." Davos stared at her. The things she'd say had stopped surprising him long ago. "Of course, the Red Woman would know. I do. If approached at night with the lanterns out, we could appear without them knowing. Leave the ship anchored and out of sight. With a small crew, hop on a skiff. We need to come from the north side." Slowly, Davos pointed out on the map, trying to make sure he got it right. "There, along the beachhead, there's a loose piece of stone. It can be easily pushed aside. With torches and flint, we'll find a winding staircase that leads deep into the castle. From there, it shouldn't be too difficult to find the cells." "Why are we doing this again?" the captain asked, hesitantly. Named Pharaoh, a decent enough fellow, but he knew the dangers of being caught sneaking inside this particular castle. Not just executed, but perhaps roasted alive. All had heard of the Dragon Queen's children, especially the big black one. "'Cause I'm paying you, also King Stannis told me to," Davos said. "Also, because Jon is a dear friend of mine, and I care for him." 7 hells, who knows what's been happening to him all this time. "How do you know he's alive?" "Jon Stark is alive," Melisandre answered. "The Lord of Light isn't done with him yet." "How sure are you of this secret path?" the first mate wanted to know. "Well, I used it to help a friend escape once," Davos said. "I highly doubt the Dragon Queen even knows about it." "So, what? We sneak in, get your boy, and sneak back out?" Pharaoh questioned. "Ideally, yes. If we run into heavy resistance, we figure it out. Hopefully, it won't come to that, because I'm not much of a fighter." "All will be fine," Melisandre told them, looking every person in the eyes. "Our presence is the only thing that can save Jon Stark. We must go." Cryptic, but the sentiment was fine with Davos. Captain Pharaoh exhaled, scratching the back of his neck. "All right, we should be nearing Dragonstone in a few days. We'll stop just out of vision as you requested." "Thank you, Captain," Davos said. Silently, the captain and his first mate walked out, leaving Davos with the Red Woman. Davos often wondered of her need to come with him, or why Stannis allowed it, given their history. "I think you unnerve the men," he told her. "My effect on them is for them to decide, I am what I am." I suppose so." Melisandre encroached on his space, as she often did with everyone. She had noticed a hesitancy in his face and inflection of his voice during the explanation of their plan. "Something's on your mind. Tell me." "Nothing." "You know it's impossible to lie to me." "Damn you," Davos murmured, looking away for a moment before returning his weathered gaze. "I'm just worried about Jon, is all. And I feel like we're walking into a trap." "They have no idea we're coming," Melisandre said, and shook her head. "The Dragon Queen will have much more to worry about than us sneaking into her castle." "What about Jon?" Well, as I said, he lives. We're here to make sure he stays that way," Melisandre smirked. "Don't worry, Sir Davos. All will be fine." With that, she floated out of the room. Davos had a deep scowl on his face, like nearly every time he interacted with the Red Woman. "Well, that did nothing to ease my worries," he muttered. "If the gods existed, any gods, for Daenerys had known many, they had a rather sick sense of humor. It seems you haven't lost a bit of your charm, Captain Ned Paris." The Queen, Tyrion, and Daario gathered in the painted table room for a small meeting. Dany sat at the end, as per usual. Tyrion resided to her left, clutching a full glass of wine. Daario stood before them, looking giddy as he always does, missing several fingers and wearing a high-collared shirt to mask several unflattering scars. The same wicked smirk that had once stoked her arousal hadn't diminished one bit. "It would be a shame to the queens of the world if I lost it. Don't you think?" he replied with his own question. "Your Grace," Daario added for posterity. "The only other queen in existence is my sister," Tyrion said with a frown. "Unless you mean Lady Saxlys. I'm sure they'd think so, but they are not the queen I chose." His eyes never left Daenerys, his voice rather suggestive. "What am I to do about him?" Even pain and humiliation hadn't slowed him down. "I appreciate your continued fealty to me, Captain, but I fear you haven't learned your lesson." "Oh no, I certainly have." With the expression of a chastised puppy, he held up his mutilated hand. "You made it quite clear that I would have to show better judgment." Somehow Daenerys detected an undercurrent in his words, but perhaps she was paranoid. "You served me well in the North, Daario, along with delivering my uncle to me promptly. Therefore, I shall grant you a combat command." Something flashed in his eyes for a split second. "On the mainland, did you think of anything different?" Eyeing Tyrion warily, she nevertheless felt to nip this in the bud. "If you wish for a posting on the island to worm your way into my bed, you can dash such a hope. I would never presume such, Your Grace. But if you decide, I meant what I said in Meereen, Daario. My mind is made up." Now, in a fortunate turn of events for her, Dainsey had a task to get him out of her sight. "Theon Greyjoy will arrive any hour now. Go to the beach and retrieve him for me. Explain the situation." Thankfully choosing not another word, Daario bowed and made his exit. "He desires your body greatly," Tyrion mused, going for a flagon of wine. "I've only seen a few men so persistent." Daenerys scowled. He'd better learn his lesson. He poured himself a goblet off the fine Dornish red, sour but plentiful. "I told you he wouldn't be the last to love you, nor would he be the only dangerous lover for you to set your eyes on." The Queen narrowed her eyes. "Speak, Tyrion. It is clear you have something specific on your mind." There was a moment of pensive silence. "I heard about you and Jon Stark in the Dragonglass Cave," Tyrion said, hiding his smirk behind his wineglass. "What of it?" Gurney replied, turning away. Tyrion laughed. "I haven't seen this in a while." "What?" Dany turned back with some heat to her tone. "You've got another one of your stunning revelations for me. A woman in love." Dany opened her mouth to retort, raising her hand. Yet she shook her head instead. "I'm not in love." Another laugh from the imp. "No? That's the look my brother always used to give my sister, though you are prettier than him, not by much though." She glared for a moment, only to sigh. "I'm not sure I fully know what love feels like. I don't know that I've ever experienced it before." Taking a seat, Daenerys pinched the bridge of her nose. "But I know what it isn't. He is my enemy." "An enemy you are so desperately trying to win to your side," Tyrion said. "He decided to test her. As far as I can tell, we've made no progress. You might as well cast him into the sea. He'll never bend the knee." Dainsey's reply was rather quick. "No, he will come to his senses." "What that he's ever done makes you come to that conclusion?" "All he's given us has been pushback or insane rantings about myths and stories," Tyrion pointed out. "Besides, what use is he to us? Any further push to execute Jon Stark might lead to you losing all access to wine," Dany threatened. "Now, why do you defend him?" If anything, I should be the one defending him against the Queen Daenerys I knew months ago. Roasting anyone alive that stood up to her, Tyrion told her, watching her reaction closely. So tell me, why is he still alive? I know, myself. I just want to see if you do. Quit with this game you're playing with me, or it might be you cast into the sea, Daenerys answered, huffing. Seems to me you're in denial, Tyrion said. The Queen shot him a deathly glare. In response, he held his hands up. Don't be angry with me. I'm just the messenger. I'm not in love with Jon Stark, Dany retorted as harshly as she could muster. She willed the words to be true, yet even as they left her tongue, she couldn't be sure. Oh, of course not, Tyrion shrugged, gesturing his hands into the air. It just seems all peculiar to me. How so? I saw you. I was there when the two of you came out of the cave, said Tyrion, narrowing his gaze at her. You two looked like you committed a murder and got away with it. The Queen ran a hand along her braided hair, not wanting to say too much about what happened. Tyrion would have a field day with her if he knew what happened. Besides, she knew not exactly what it was herself. We examined the dragon glass. Nothing else? Tyrion raised his eyebrows. Well, there was something else. We found these cave paintings or carvings, Dany admitted, lowering her brow. The walls were covered in ancient murals. Murals of what? I don't rightly know. He understood it better than I. Tyrion began to laugh, but shut his mouth quickly, realizing Daenerys was serious. Oh, I legitimately thought you jest. Truly? Yes, Dane said with a nod. I saw it all. What are the murals of? Tyrion asked her. Then Dany pursed her lips and looked away. Grumpkins and snarks. The ice monsters beyond the wall. Gods be good. Has he convinced you now? Tyrion sighed. His eyes examined her unchanged countenance. Some pictures scratched on some rocks have you believing in fairy tales. I didn't say that, Dany replied. I've just only now begun to recognize the possibility he's telling the truth. Do you think Jon Stark to be a liar or a madman? No, Tyrion answered plainly. Perhaps when I first met him, I would have called him a madman. But now, everything's changed. The time he spent in that cell would have ruined anyone else. Instead, he seemed to relish my attempts, spouting on long about these ice monsters and the Night King. A normal person would call him mad, but I don't think Jon Stark to be mad. As I've said, I don't think he's mad either. Regardless, he is a lost cause. He will never turn to our side. At this juncture, I don't think we should expect him to. Dany's side, I don't want to give up. Halting in place, Tyrion looked up at her. Are you saying that because you want the North to be subjugated, or are you saying that because you want him here? Despite being a flagrant drunkard, Daenerys had to admit that the imp truly could think his way to the heart of a problem. Both, I suppose. Why both? I can understand wishing to secure the North, but what is so special about Jon Stark? He knew why. Hells. He had said it, but there was a justification there that she would use, and Tyrion wanted to know. Because he is a good man. It all went back to Missandeia's words. She had pinpointed it before any of them. He is an ally I need. One that I truly believe can help me build a better world, rather than the monsters and the backstabbers you dealt with. A good answer. One Tyrion couldn't refute on the merits, but he knew there was more than she was telling. I just want you to admit it. She blinked. Admit what? Admit that you have grown to care for Jon Stark. As shocking as it would be, neither Stannis nor Cersei would bother to even look at a foe before having them killed. Here Daenerys was, growing close to Lord Stark. Likely best, I don't question the act itself. He had been her enemy once, after all. But Jon didn't bend the knee. Perhaps I care for Jon Stark more than I admit, Dany confessed. Why? A simple question without a simple answer. I don't know if I can explain it. He has an effect on me that no other man ever has. It's just him. It stretched the point of incredulity for Tyrion. He was your enemy, Stannis as Master of War. What happened in the cave? Can you just tell me that? She said nothing. You saw the dragon glass and some nonsensical murals. I know something else must have happened between the two of you. Tyrion leaned forward in his chair, setting his wine glass aside. What changed between you? The Queen looked away from him, exhaling. She retreated out of her chair and out onto the balcony, her hands laid on the stone banister, wishing she had something else to squeeze until it would shatter, even closing her eyes, trying to lower her heart rate. Since her time in the dragon glass cave, she'd relived it in her mind, feeling lighter than she had for some time, maybe ever. Just two people, in a moment sweeter than she realized. Snuffed out just at the apex, a feeling she'd since longed to return. She knew these thoughts to be true. Despite that, she was a queen. The one true queen. The moment shared with Jon Stark was pleasant. Truly, it was. Yet, she cannot set aside her ambition for a lord of an enemy house. Tyrion's words rang true in her mind. Jon Stark would never bend the knee. They should no longer expect him to. He is still my enemy and will never be my subject, though he does not have to be either. Perhaps she'd only wasted precious time trying to sway him. The North can give you nothing. He'd said it himself. Still, her heart sang a different song. How handsome he was, even under layers of dirt, even as she first laid eyes on the man. It stirred things in her that hadn't been startled in a very long time. Feelings bubbled up that she hadn't seen since the first time she laid with Dario. But those same feelings disappeared some time ago. Whenever she looked at him, her body would react in subtle ways. She was excellent at hiding it. Just so happened she didn't care to hide anything about her feelings in the Dragonglass cave. Many parts of her wanted to further explore what it meant to appreciate Jon Stark. Care for him, perhaps even love him. She chuckled inwardly. Love, a thought so alien to her that she couldn't truly grasp it. Was this the beginnings of it? With an enemy, no less. I believe the best option is to let Jon go, Tyrion said, appearing from behind her. She suddenly turned, eyes widening. Let him go. Dany scoffed, staring at him. After all that he's seen, not like he's seen our battle plans. He hasn't. It's the right thing to do, after all. He suffered at your hands. Tyrion tried to explain his thought process. Jon will never bend the knee. It's the only option. You can't execute him, lest the North revolts and never kneels for you. He's distracted us from Cersei for long enough. Stannis will march on King's Landing sooner rather than later. Thousands will die. Let Jon Stark go home. He's no threat to us. Swear him to neutrality, and send him on his way. What of after the war? What then? What happens when I wear the crown? Then we return our attention to the North. With luck, they will be more receptive to the Queen, who returned their lord seemingly unharmed. Dany returned her gaze back out the open air. Her eyes naturally wandered over the beach side. I suppose I could give him the Dragonglass as well. The obsidian? I wager Lord Stark would greatly appreciate that. Besides, you have no use for it. Yes, Dany whispered, somewhat breathless. Now her mind thought of what it would like for Jon to leave. Her heart began to feel tight, thinking of what might be. But her mind told her he'd only be a distraction from what really mattered. Think of this. What do you have to gain? Tyrion asked her in a serious tone. That is what every decision people make is about. What do you have to gain? When I look at Jon Stark, I see raw power pointed at the right thing. He's unstoppable. You give him a purpose and a sword in his hands. His will is stronger than any other man I've seen. Any other man would have broken before your might. They would have bent the knee right in front of your dragon. But he didn't, and still won't. Despite that, when I look at Jon Stark, I see nothing to be gained. There's no point further waging this mental uphill battle. Why do you say that? Because of what you've done to him, burning his friends, keeping him captive, allowing him to be beaten. Dario did that without my consent. Disobeying my direct instructions, she hissed, defending herself. He held up his hands. I know, but the fact is he felt nothing but pain by being in your care. Tyrion sighed, trying to help her understand. What about what he wants? Dany asked him, a bit pleading. What if he wanted to stay? Tyrion frowned. I'm sorry, Your Grace. I'd be aghast if he wanted to stay here. I highly doubt he'd not choose to return to his homeland. The South is not for Starks. Then his eyes widened. Oh, I see. It's not that, Tyrion interjected. I think we've done all we can. I don't know if he'd ever bend the knee. Even if he loved you, as we sit here talking about him, he may lay you. But I don't think it matters, because he won't act on it. He'll bury it. I know he'll bury it because I've done the same thing. The Impa gave a tiny, bittersweet grin. Dwarves and bastards. You see, we're a lot alike. I know what it's like to feel pointless love. Pointless love. The words fluttered off Dany's tongue in a low tone, quieter than Tyrion could hear. 2 words meant for Jon, yet they resonated with her nevertheless. What do you say, Your Grace? Dany kept her eyes on the vast ocean. I will allow him to return to the North. I will allow him to return with his men to mine the dragonglass. He can have the whole cave worth for all I care." Tyrion nodded, even though she wasn't looking at him. "This is the correct choice, my queen." "You'd better hope so," she said bittingly, though Tyrion figured it wasn't truly directed at him. "Tonight, I'll go see Jon," he offered. "I can be the one to tell him." "No, I wish to speak with him one more time," Dean said suddenly and sternly. "I will tell him." From a loose crack in one of the walls, the sellsword drew back from where his ear was pressed to the opening. Dismissed, but not having left. "Good thing I didn't," eyes widening at the words his queen spoke, teeth grinding in anger at having been proved more right than even he thought possible. Wordlessly, he slunk away, plotting his next move. Trembling slightly, Theon Greyjoy managed to stay firm as the skiff bobbed in the water, oarsmen heaving through the swells and tides to reach the shore. Leaning on his knee as the bright red orb of the dawn sun cast its first rays upon the bay. Even though he essentially grew up in Winterfell without a body of water in sight, even he seemed a natural, perhaps it was an iron-born trait, mastering the seas. Leading men was not one of them, however, or bravery, which was why he had no cock and Yarrow was dead. Looking up at the dark facade of Dragonstone, Theon willed his mind not to think of those loved ones dead, but rather on the ones alive, Sansa, Rickon, Arya. Jon, while he and Jon had little in common, the former bastard of Winterfell had given him a chance, it seemed so long ago. I will not let him down again. The poor lord needed someone in his corner in the Dragon Queen's court. Once the skiff's keel smacked into the sandbar, Theon and the other sailors leapt out, grabbing onto hooks to drag it ashore. "Come on, lads," he called out, trying to be a leader. "The Theon Greyjoy." The Theon looked up to see a figure standing with several unsullied guards, beard styled and a grin on his face. "Welcome back to Dragonstone." It took a moment for the Theon to place the face. Nephice. Naharis. He wasn't close to the sellsword. Little opinion of him since arriving from Meereen, though giving him a wide berth since he unsuccessfully tried to entice Yara into his bed. Wasn't he the Queen's lover? "You're my welcoming committee." He shrugged. "You're a vital member of the Queen's Council. She'd send someone important to escort you up. Brief you on what happened." Bjorn's eyes narrowed. "I am a vital member. I'm not arrogant anymore." Sellsword. "At best, I rate near the second tier." "All right." Dario sighed, spreading his arms out apologetically. "Perhaps the Queen and I have been quarreling. Normal spats and high fatigue." "Lovers quarrel?" Once the skiff was secured on the beach, Theon followed Dario to the staircase. "What did you do? Put your cock in the wrong hole." He really wasn't in the mood to deal with the sellsword's small talk, and his irritation showed. There was a short silence. "Something like that," he finally said. "In any case, she tasked me early this morning to inform you of the lay of the land. The crownlands up to Rosie and Stokeworth are in our hands. A beachhead, a small one, but enough to damage Cersei. Go on. I would tell you what I know of Dorne, but you just came from there." Dario chuckled. "The North has declared neutrality, and we've imprisoned their lord as a hostage. Jon, is he unharmed?" "As much as the Queen will allow, though she is pretty impatient with the whole situation at this point. The Khalasar bowed to her when she killed their Khalas, so should the North when she defeated their armies and captured their lord." "The North will never bend or break," Theon replied, "and neither will Jon. May I see him?" Dario shook his head. "No, the Queen wants you to inform her hand and Lord Tyrion of the message from Dorne. If she then permits you to see him, then you can. And when would she permit me to see him?" A familiar face might allow him to see reason and end this madness before any more Northerners are killed. "As if I care about those frozen cunts. Let me put it this way. He is under tight guard against lone visitors due to unseemly behavior in the past." Then Dario looked behind him to make sure no one was within earshot. Theon was surprised to see him lean close. "But since you're my friend, I'll see what I can do about letting you see him. I've got connections. Perhaps, later tonight, the Queen will call for Jon Stark to be brought before her in the throne room. I'll put in a good word for you. See if the Queen might let you escort him yourself," Dario said, slapping Theon on the back. "But it might be that she refuses. In that case, forgive me, but those are her orders." Theon frowned but sighed. Her orders are her orders. The two men ascended the steps one by one. Not another word passed. Her guards came to attention as soon as she entered the hallway. Daenerys felt calm temper her at the sight of the Unsullied. Such a presence in her life and her conquest since the stunning triumph that transformed her from a beggar queen into a force to be reckoned with. That moment of strength and power never ceased to flow through her. She needed that power now, facing Jon Stark. Not that she dreaded seeing him, but that she might want to see him too much. But the blood of the dragon didn't cower. Daenerys pushed open the door and entered. Dozing lightly, the sound of the door woke him rather easily. Honestly, at the glint of silver hair, Jon found his instincts validated. After Aegon's chat, her arrival was rather preordained by his rid of the situation. Even still, for once he was glad to see her. Glad that his determination of her impending arrival wasn't just wishful thinking. "Forgive me, Your Grace, but I didn't take the chance to freshen myself up." Her Unsullied brought in a chair from a different room, Dainty sitting down as soon as it was placed beside her. Taking a deep breath, yet straight and decisive, Daenerys welled up the inner fortitude to say what she wished to say from a position of strength. Less worried about seeming weak to him, more building the strength against her own cowardice. That I don't wish him to leave, but if she did keep him, was it truly how Dainty would want it? No, I have to do this. Tapping his fingers against his leg, Jon could only take so much of this. Waiting around until gods know when, while she simply stared down at him silently. "Well, I know that I am pretty much a captive audience, but can we—" "Lord Stark," she announced, his normal snark managing to boost her fortitude, "I have come to the conclusion that you will never bend the knee." He blinked, her words surprising him for a moment. Only a moment, for Jon started chuckling. "It took you this long to come to that knowledge?" After his conversation with Aemon, Jon didn't wish to be antagonistic with Daenerys any further, merely obstinate if it need be, but this was truly funny. I mean, the fact that a dragon or your sellsword torturing me didn't make me break should have been enough warning. She smirked in spite of herself. Perhaps it should. Looking at him without the lens of being enemies, his stubbornness was actually quite charming. "Given this determination, I have decided to release you back to the north." For a few seconds, Jon didn't answer. He heard her completely. But the words didn't fully register. Go home? He could go home. After all this time, he truly had wondered if he'd ever leave this damned island. Many thoughts started to race through his mind. So fast he couldn't recognize it all. But it all came to a standstill when his eyes settled on the woman before him again. "What about Daenerys?" "What about you?" he said. "You need not worry about me," she said, shaking her head. "Also, if you do wish to leave, you must swear a vow of neutrality for the wars to come." "Well, I don't think the meager army I have left will add that much to Stannis' forces," Jon said. "Regardless, you must swear it if you are to leave." Done. He'd not pass up a chance to go home anytime soon. "An easy choice for you?" she asked, not surprised. "Not much of a choice to me. An easy one, sure," Jon answered plainly, though he felt the stirring of conflict within him. A new feeling, one he would not have had even a week before. "But I'm wondering why you're allowing me. Doesn't seem smart for you." Truly, it was Tyrion's idea. He convinced me. I decided it was best for both of us. Nodding, Jon peered at her. "I can see the benefit to you. Can see why you took his advice. You truly wish to be seen as different." A look of triumph appeared on her face. Convinced she finally had gotten to him. "Now, you haven't done a good job at it, but the motivation is there. That I can admit and applaud, though you have to do better." "Better? I suspect you've come a long way from what I heard, traipsing across the red wastes. Enduring your brother, perhaps there is hope for you." Furrowing her brows, Dany was, if elated, though that emotion carried its own questions, also a bit confused as to why the intractable Jon Stark that defied Drogon rather than bend the knee was now suddenly concerned about her and her efforts. Mentioning her brother, then it hit her. "You spoke to my uncle recently, didn't you?" She knew Aemon's goings and comings, and any visitor to Jon Stark's apartment especially managed to reach her through Missandei. Aemon must have doused him in her history. How'd that slip my mind? She should have put that together. "Everything with Jon Stark messes with my head." Jon shrugged. "It's your damn castle. Why wouldn't you know?" Blunt, yet earnestly so. Dany found herself appreciating it. Perhaps she always did. A queen has so much information to digest. Some unimportant things slip through. "So, I'm unimportant. It affronted him more than it should. Blinking, Dany bit the inside of her cheek. I didn't say that. Gods, he had been in the top 3 of her concerns for moons. Perhaps even the top concern. So much did Jon Stark fill her thoughts. What did you and Arim speak of? Why didn't you ask him? I respect his privacy. And not mine? Regardless of my declaration, you're still my prisoner until you accept. Her lips curled up in a smirk, regarding him, appreciatively. You have no privacy yet? He snorted, grinning slightly as well. I'm less insulted than you would think. I think a lot of things. Now tell me what you two talked about. Jane's response was quick. That didn't require much hedging. It's the truth. He spread his hands out. What else would we talk about? But Daenerys highly hoped it was more the former than the latter at this point. If his conversation with Aemon went as well as mine did, then that could be true. I presume you spoke negatively of me. Sitting back down, for once Jon averted his gaze. Normally defiant and facing her directly in his attacks, this time he demurred, You did burn my men, and invaded Westeros without care to the wishes of anyone. Her teasing mood turned sour. Gainsey's anger and irritation peaked. This again? I should have known you'd fall back to that, Jon Stark. To think he still thought her a monster that burned innocents alive without care. It hurt. I've told you before, and I'll tell you again. I'm not here to harm people, but to help them. To pull the forgotten and beaten down out of the shit lives they've always known. To break the wheel? Yes, I'm familiar. Looking up and seeing the fire in her violet eyes, he sighed. Your Grace, I am not seeking another pointless argument with you. You have sought to give me my freedom without subjugation, and that speaks volumes. I'd be a fool not to acknowledge it. Some of the fire left her eyes, yet the scowl on her face and the way Daenerys tilted her hips gave off something like, You've been a fool about many things. You know nothing, Jon Snow, but that is what I told Maester Aemon. You were foolish to come to Westeros the way you did. He mollified her anger, somewhat. And how do you figure that? You speak of breaking their chains, but they have no chains, Jon replied firmly. They are free. You think their world is one to be proud of? Dane scoffed. That you wouldn't want to change it. No, but you can't go around and claim that they are slaves. Either. He pursed his lips. That's what I said regarding you needing to do better. You were born in Westeros. Yes, but you weren't raised here. Essos is where your mindset is, and if you continue with that, then you will lose. What do you mean? Clearly, this isn't Essos, Jon said, pointing at the ground. This is Westeros. 2 completely different lands. I know that. Do you? Because you treat the people the same. Westeros isn't some untamed land of slaves and slave masters, with several different cities with their own kings and queens, he told her. As I said, the people here are free. They have no chains. They are bound to nothing. You cannot come here to this land and try to conquer it like your ancestors. The people here will never forgive you. How should I go about it then? If you're so damned smart, she prodded. You act so high and mighty, like you're such a better choice than Stannis or Cersei. Stomping your foot and yelling about breaking the wheel. It all amounts to nothing, if you cannot show anyone why you're worth following. You've done it before, with all the people you have behind you. But still, Westeros is different. To get what you want, you'll need to do it a different way. You act like you have all the answers, and yet she might want his answers. If Dany was wrong to keep him chained, more of her plans could be wrongly thought out. I don't. Far from it, people followed me and I still don't know why. I'm just making this up as I go along. It appeared as if you were a seasoned leader, the way your men obeyed your commands, she said. Remembering how all his men bent their knees when he told them to. Despite Drogon looming near, many didn't bend until he told them to. They were all loyal to him. I just think I was in the right place, at the exact right time. For Stannis to see me, I suppose. That's the only reason I ever had people follow me. My uncle believed even if you had stayed at the wall, you would have become Lord Commander. Some wishful thinking, I think. I never had a chance at Lord Commander. Axamon believed in you. I was always thankful for him. I always felt as if he was on my side, even when I felt surrounded on all sides. It's only right I thank you, in a way you brought my uncle to me. He never would have made it here if it wasn't for your impudence. To that, Jon replied with a cheeky smile. If Stannis finds out that I helped you, I could be in big trouble. If I wanted to sow even more discord in his ranks, I could hand you over to him, and have Varys spread some rumors. But her smirk belied her lack of seriousness. I'm not above such underhanded measures. Sometimes they are justified, but for you, they are not. This had to be interesting. And why is that? Because your goal was never the throne, or any throne for that matter. Regardless of the reality of the ice monsters, you merely want to defeat them. Beneath the enigma of Jon Stark, Daenerys was starting to see the man, the bastard born to the honorable Eddard Stark that wanted nothing but found himself struggling for everything. Them and keeping your family safe, I suppose. An image flashed in his mind, one of his father and siblings on the last day before the journeys, before the seven hells unleashed themselves upon House Stark. My family. Deep down, I think that's what you yearn for too. A family. In that we're the same. He never would have thought he shared anything with a rider of fire-breathing monsters. But he did. Unlike me, though, your only family is a man close to death's door. I can't imagine how that makes you feel. It didn't escape him that she was now glaring. He had delved too deep. Seeing as I'll be leaving, might as well lay it all out there. I knew you'd want to leave, she started, tone low. Yet, perhaps I didn't expect. Their eyes locked in on each other. Jon suddenly widened, coming to a rather important conclusion. You don't wish for me to leave. A simple sentence, but one with massive meaning. You know I have to leave, or rather that you can't continue to lock me up. However, you truly wish me to stay. Eyes averting their gaze, biting her lip, Daenerys sighed, needing to rise from her seat. Setting the chair aside, she crossed her arms. It seems to me that you don't wish to leave either. I've made my desire to return home to my family, apparent for weeks. That you have, she continued, turning the tables. But the light in your eyes, the sense of hope returning, it's been absent. You've spent the last hour arguing with me over strategy rather than the logistics of your return. It makes me wonder about your own feelings on the matter. Say what one would about Jon Stark. He truly kept her on her toes in a way even Tyrion couldn't. Jon narrowed his eyes at her. I think you're trying to distract yourself from your emotions, Queen Daenerys. Daenerys's eyes sparkled, her name sounding rather smooth in his northern brogue. And I think you are doing the same, Lord Stark. What can I say? I'm a former bastard from the north. Up there we don't much know what to do with our emotions. But bury them? Is that what you do? Dany replied quickly. Her conversation with Tyrion came to mind. Seemingly taken off guard, Jon huffed. What are you talking about? Instead of dealing with your emotions and issues, you bury them within yourself so that you can ignore them, she told him, smirking a bit. You'd rather brood than comprehend what you feel. I know exactly what I feel, Jon retorted. It's just that I understand the reality of what I feel. It's impossible. I don't think it's impossible. He shrugged, looking at his feet. It feels impossible, but it doesn't have to be. It can be real, just like we are, real as ever. As it was in the cave, Jon asked, raising his eyebrows. His words brought her back to that moment, reeling from the paintings on the cave that his seemingly nightmarish gibberish could actually be real. A moment of warmth, of joy that may have emerged from the cold. I thought so at the time, but you made yourself clear. The look on Jon Stark's face had been etched into her memory. One of a man coming to his senses, knowing that lust and confusion brought him close to a horrible mistake. A subtle scoff left Jon's mouth. If you're referring to how I recoiled, you might remember you did something similar. It was only natural, given the circumstances, especially 3 angry savages ready to put a blade in my back if they saw me too close to their queen. KDC, she replied, glaring at him. That's my title to them, and they are as much savages as those living beyond the wall are to you. They aren't savages, Jon hissed. Neither are the Dothraki. While challenging her, part of his mind remained calm enough to realize the similarities. Both of them have achieved wonders with a race of peoples demonized as barbarians. He bringing the wildlings south of the wall, and she bringing the Dothraki across the narrow sea. 2 souls so different and yet so similar. The Dothraki seem to revere you more highly than anyone else, Jon finally pointed out, gesturing at her. I expect they defend you to their last breath, though the Dothraki I fought during our battle went down easily enough. There was that huge one, though. Jon raised his hand far above his head to accent his point. Big fucker, with a scar on his face, and a bushy beard. He might have got the best of me. Dany frowned. Coro? She remembered one of her blood riders with that description being lost in the fighting. You killed Coro. Jon shrugged and half laughed. I suppose, if that was his name, he died just like the rest. Not knowing whether to be impressed or furious, Dane sighed, saying, I suppose you were the better that day. If not for your dragon, I would have shown you how much better I was. Jon grinned, finding a slight pleasure in bragging as if he were Robb or Theon for a moment. We had your army stopped cold. You outnumbered us, massively, and we still almost triumphed. Even Daenerys had to admit he was right. Barristan and Jorah, when he was alive, spoke of foes and rivals that were nevertheless mighty warriors worthy of respect, those that fought with all they had but did so with honor. Jon Stark is nothing but an honorable warrior worthy of respect. Even from Dragonback, you made an imposing figure. In the thick of the fighting with your men, none of the slavers or cowardly khals that I faced before would think of even allowing themselves in a moment where they didn't have complete control. I know, but I'm not most men. He met her gaze, an intensity washing over him that wasn't entirely unpleasant. Probably why I'm still alive. True, she nodded, the small smirk returning. Perhaps you dazzled me a bit, though that may have been your sword, a beautiful Valyrian steel bastard sword. It didn't shock her that Jon Stark carried one, given all his skills. But Tyrion had pointed out once that it wasn't ice, the ancestral blade of House Stark. Where did that blade come from? For I'm sure there's a story there. While teasing and warm, she saw his features harden. Jon leaned back, sighing. It's not the best of memories for me, but this only made her more curious, so he continued. I saved the Lord Commander's life from a wight. He gave me Longclaw as a sort of gratuity. Longclaw. Jero once spoke of a sword he lost, called Longclaw. The ancestral Valyrian steel blade of House Mormont, a bastard sword now in the hands of a bastard. How ironic. He thought back on the Lord Commander wistfully. I admired Jar Mormont greatly. I suppose we have that in common. Both admiring a man of House Mormont. It seems the world is small that way. There was a pleasant silence. About your sword. Gods, don't tell me that sellsword has it. Honestly, if Jon had to die by dragonfire to keep his blade out of Nakaras's grubby hands, he would seriously consider it. Shaking her head, Gainty enjoyed how he seemed to relax. The stress lines leaving his eyes, making him look like the young man he was, young and handsome. Before you depart, it will be returned to you, she reassured him. I promise. It won't be right for me to keep it. This truly surprised him. Why? You defeated me in battle fairly. It was as Meister Aemon said, the dragon was but a tool. Had he rode one, there was no chance he wouldn't have used it to free Sansa at Winterfell long before. House Targaryen lost both its swords. You could replenish it. Why give it back to me? She exhaled slowly, examining his face. I saw you fight with that blade. You looked graceful. Anyone else with it would look like a child with a sword, much too big for them. Daddio certainly would have, as would she. Seeing as the next time we see each other could be on the battlefield, I might like to see you once more like that. A battlefield? Aren't I supposed to be sworn to neutrality? Yes, you are, but time changes things. Who knows? When I take the throne and return to the north for your fealty, you could still want to fight. I think I've seen enough of your dragon burning my people, Jon replied lowly. I try to honor my vows, besides. Oh, I've seen that. Your insistent righteousness, Dany huffed. I've seen quite a lot more you as well. You're not a difficult book to read. And what do you know about me? You're stubborn more than anything, she said. Anyone can see that. Once you've got a notion in your head, you stick to it. You are unmoving. Tyrion dared to call you unstoppable. Once you've got your eyes set on something, that's where you are. You don't change your mind. Jon held his hands up in defeat. You've got me pegged. A stubborn old goat I am. You're anything but old, Jon Stark. Old of mind, perhaps, but not old by far. You're honorable to a fault. Any other man would have bent the knee before me if it meant they could be free. Dany relented. That's the most interesting part about you. It confounds me. I thought for sure, eventually, her words, much of it was praise, something he'd hear from Davos or Arya or Sansa. Somehow he valued it just as much. If not somewhat more so. I told you I wouldn't in the beginning. You should have believed me. How could I? I didn't know you. You were an anomaly. I told you, I've seen quite a lot of you. Jon dared to dream again. You like what you've seen? I do. Her response was quick. So quick the words emptied from her mouth before she had time to consider them. Immediately she thought she might regret saying it. How she liked what she saw. But she didn't. It felt good to tell him. Staring at her in a sort of wonder, Jon felt a stirring that hadn't come to him since Yurdi. What if I told you that I feel the same way? Her heart fluttered. I'd be glad to hear it. There was no denying it now. I haven't forgotten how I felt in the Dragonglass cave, Jon whispered, but loud enough for her to hear. Don't think I will anytime soon. Dany didn't reply right away, even avoiding his gaze. But suddenly she met his eyes, a tiny sparkle amidst the violet. What would have happened if we hadn't been interrupted? Without speaking, Jon rose and neared himself to her. She tensed at their closeness. His steady breathing caressed her complexion. They looked at each other in the eyes as his hand came to her face, as he did in the cave, except this time, this thumb slowly brushed over her cheek, just under her eye. Their first touch, she closed her eyes and leaned into him. His palm opened to receive her. She half expected hard, calloused experience against his skin. Instead, it was the sweetest thing she'd felt against her. Perhaps ever. His hand was weathered, for sure. But the layer of softness sent her into a tailspin. Before she knew it, her own hand came up to hold his in place. Her hand felt wonderful. Not a searing heat, but more a gentle warmth. Nothing as he had ever imagined the Dragon Queen to be. What more need I say? Nothing, she replied. It was she who took a step back then. She realized how futile it all was. He is leaving. What was there to be gained? Nothing would come of it. Best that she stop it before anything started. Not looking at his undoubted sadness, Dany turned, heading towards the door. Your Grace! He was confused. Why was she leaving? Daenerys? A boat is coming for you. It should be here on the morrow. It will take you to White Harbor, Dane said. Be happy, Lord Stark, for your going home. There's joy in that. I'm sure your family will take you in with open arms. It's where you belong. The South isn't for Starks. Jon went after her. Don't leave like this. I may never see you again. I know, that's why I wish to go now, before things get uncertain. Daenerys, don't leave, he pleaded. She stilled, standing before the door, her back towards Jon, his use of her name, so sweet on his tongue, as if they were intimate, not foes facing off against each other in the Game of Thrones, but lovers in some fantasy. Her heart wanted her to stay, but her sharp mind knew better. Eventually, she gained the strength to regard him. Needing to grimace a bit to keep from showing him what she felt internally, she yearned for him. She burned inside for him. Nevertheless, she said, Goodbye, Lord Greyjoy. Theon stopped walking, flagged down by Nyrius jogging over to him. Her Grace is preparing for an audience in the throne room. It's after dark and there's a storm outside. Why would? Don't look at me, my friend. I'm just relaying to you the Queen's orders. Kicked me out of bed and everything to set it up, and you remember what I promised you earlier. And here Theon was, his heart beating out of his chest as he arrived at the corridor where Jon was being kept. The two unsullied guards standing ramrod straight, drawing him like a magnet to the door. They obviously recognized him, for one grabbed the door handle and opened it, revealing the quiet, hunched-over form of Jon Stark resting atop the cot. There was a tremble in Theon's hands, apprehensive of who was for all intents and purposes his foster brother's reaction. He didn't have to wait long, noticing the Ironborn standing in the doorway, only a slight widening of his eyes breaking through the mask. Theon? A slight sheen of sweat formed on Theon's forehead. Jon, he stepped in. I'm glad to see you're well. If you had come several moons ago, you wouldn't have been able to say that. His expression changed to a glare. I would hit you, but I'd rather not piss off the Queen's Council more than I have. Hanging his head, Theon nodded. I probably can't count on my all fingers the number of people who didn't want to punch me. Jon lifted a brow. You probably could have, for as long as I've known you. They stared at each other for a moment before both chuckling dryly, sharing some dark humor in the midst of all this. What are you doing here? I mean here specifically. He stood straighter, motioning to the door. Queen's calling for an audience, sent me to escort you. Jon blinked. This was surprising. She had just been here no more than a few hours before, and had seemingly wished to end personal contact. And she sent you? He hoped it was true, prayed it to be true, if only to see her again. No, she sent one of her advisors. He couldn't see Missandei or Sar Barristan doing this. Probably Tyrion. He likes playing mind games, seeing how I react. Alright. Jon stood, rolling his shoulders back. I'll try not to kill you long enough to get me there. Eyes moved to his sword. Me unarmed? It would be a fair fight. Theon chuckled again. It was good to see Jon the same man he knew, if older, wiser, and tougher. Hells, we've all changed. While the Unsullied attempted to shackle him, Theon waved them off. No need. I'll watch him well. He placed his hand on the hilt of his sheathed blade, waving them off. Ironic, considering Jon was probably right. Out of all those at Winterfell, he had been the most prodigious swordsman. They walked silently along the hallways for a minute, both unable to find words. Didn't expect to see you again, Jon finally said. Heard your ship was raided by your uncle. Thought you may have died. Almost did, Theon confessed. Euron killed 2 of the Sand Snakes. Probably the others along with 2/3 of the Dornish lords, and my sister, in front of me. I'm sorry. Jon was genuine. Barely remembered her before I went to Winterfell. We essentially resented each other when I got back to Pike, though she tried to save me from Ramsay. It was still hard to say his name. How is Sansa? And Rickon? Are they well? He was hesitant, hoping against bad news. Sensing he was legitimately concerned, Jon lessened his frostiness to Theon. They were both well last time I saw them. Aruzia's back too. Healthy and in good spirits. Breath hitching, Theon clutched his chest, calming his nervous breathing. Thank the gods, I feared the worst. They turned a corner, entering a tall and wide, grand hallway. Darkness banished for a moment by lightning, storm roaring against the walls. Sansa will be glad to hear you alive. Not necessarily which side you're on. He eyed Theon judgingly. I asked you to do something for me, Theon. The Ironborn heir sighed. If I could have done it, I would have. It was impossible. One faction allied with Cersei Lannister. What problem would yours have had they allied with Stannis? Yaira chose Daenerys, largely because Euron wanted to offer himself to her first. At Jon's questioning gaze, he elaborated, my uncle was going to suggest a marriage alliance with the Dragon Queen. At that moment, Jon felt a sudden anger flare through him, punctuated by a crack of thunder, an urge to rend Euron Greyjoy alive, only to gradually calm after a moment. Where did that come from? The thought of the Ironborn pirate being anywhere close to Daenerys making him both sick to his stomach and seeing red. So you broke your promise to Sansa and I in order to head off your uncle getting dragons on his side. Well, Yara put that a bit more profanely. That's it. Jon regarded that fairly. Smart of her. From what I've heard, I'd rather have you with Daenerys than your uncle. While he nodded, Theon didn't look at him. Do you remember what I told you if you betrayed us? Theon continued to stare ahead as they reached the throne room. Yes. Good. Seeing no guards at the front, Theon blinked in surprise, but nevertheless pulled open the door, easing his way in behind Jon. The throne room was as intimidating as one would think of coming out of old Valyria. Black, high ceiling, throne jagged out of the hybrid dragon glass material, rumored to have been made with a combination of advanced masonry and magic. Only a few torches mounted around the walls kept the room lit. Large candelabras untouched. In fact, there was no one there at all. You said there was supposed to be an audience? Jon said, brows furrowed. Walking ahead of him, Theon was just as confused. Perhaps her grace is making us wait. That didn't sound like her. The queen wouldn't make an entrance. She'd wait at the head of the throne. And even if she didn't, there would still be guards and perhaps Missandei. Jon was cut off as a sharp pain stabbed through his back, blade digging through his flesh, blood soaking through his shirt. The blade felt as if he reached deep into his upper back, hopefully not close to his heart. The teeth swirled around. No, he drew his short sword. Too late, Lord Greyjoy. Jon groaned in anguish as the knife was drawn out, knees buckling just as Daario rounded towards the throne, smirking smugly, circling the stern-faced Theon who dashed close to the fallen Stark. It's foolish to protect him. He's dead anyway. Jon opened his mouth to speak, but he could barely croak, the pain suddenly overwhelming him in agonizing waves. Theon, meanwhile, only gripped the sword tighter. Why did you do this? A laugh from the sellsword. Some might say vengeance. Some might say he just pisses me off. But the truth, the bastard has a way of blinding the queen to reality. It will destroy her, and I'm the only one who truly cares about her enough to do something about it. The smirk only widened. Was pretty easy deceiving you, and you unintentionally deceived him. You're going to die for this. Step aside, Greyjoy. You were enough of a fool today. Jadeo drew his Araka. Just leave, and you will be rewarded. Having been a coward or an impetuous jackass for too long, Theon wasn't about to let another loved one die on his watch. Letting loose a battle cry, he charged at Daario, short sword, thrust out, only to draw back, parrying Daario's slashing counterattack. Blades clashing in a cacophony of steel, blood dripping onto the stone, Jon collapsed onto all fours, breathing hard as the pain pulsed through his body. Sweat soaking him even as a cold draft howled through the throne room. Close to blacking out, he knew the wound was far more serious than his previous injuries, likely shredding through his organs, but seeing Daario's expert slashes strike home, flashes of crimson illuminated by the lightning spurting from Theon. It surged willpower through him. I'm not going to die. Sword beating back another slash, Theon missed the knee that came up and slammed into his crotch, where his stones would have been. It wasn't anywhere near debilitating, but it did stagger him a bit. Enough for Daario to punch him in the throat, causing his sword to fall from his hands. Daario saw something in the corner of his eye. He was surprised. You're not dead. Despite the blow to his back, Jon rose to his feet. Can't make it that easy. Gritting his teeth through the pain, his arms came up, balled into fists, ready to block any blow that came to him. Not yet. Had to stab me in the back. Couldn't get me otherwise. Ooh, Daario laughed, pushing Theon's limp form back. Bastard, you really are a tough one. I've killed 100 men with that same stab. Not me. Oh, just wait, Daario grunted. He punched Theon in the ribs twice, then a blow to the face. To the Ironborn's credit, he took it stride, but Daario cast him aside easily. Stay the fuck down, kid. Get off him. Yang yelled, rising back up with more fire than before. Not wanting to let Jon down again when he needed him most. Though this time, Daario caught him by the throat. I told you to stay down, he said. In response to Theon's insolence, he jabbed his blade clean through Theon's shoulder blade, steel reaching through to the open air. Theon cried out, but tried to stay strong. Nevertheless, Daario forced him back until his feet fell out from under him. Theon tumbled against one of the columns of the far wall, sliding weakly to the ground. I told you I'd kill you, Jon told Daario, trying to stay upright. You remember that? Daario chuckled, slicking his loose hair back. Oh yes, I didn't forget that. But look who has the upper hand now. He approached slowly, twirling his blade in his fingers. I've waited for this moment for a long time. I want to savor it. Even as his blood seeped through the back of his shirt, Jon scowled through it, trying his best to ready himself for a fight. Too bad you won't have a chance. Daario danced close then, laughing. You are such a wild... His sentence was cut off by Jon's fist colliding with his cheek. Even in a weakened state, he mustered the strength. Still, the act brought Jon to his knees, groaning in pain. Daario backed up, clutching his jaw, laughing at the pain. Wild one. He finished his thought, wiping a fleck of blood from his lip. Though it seems you're spent, he went back over to Jon, who was doubled over. The Anturin rolled over on the ground nearby, trying to get to his feet. He locked eyes with Jon, who glared at him. Jon began to breathe more heavily, huffing and puffing. He wheezed and shook his head at Theon, holding his hand up to him. Even standing on death's doorstep, Jon didn't even think of himself first, for he knew if Theon attacked Datchir again, he would surely die. Nevertheless, Theon wrestled himself to his feet, all red in the face. Daario, get away from him. Kid, you have got to learn your lesson, Daario went back over to Theon. Unfortunately, the Greyjoy was no match. Daario launched a barrage of blows with his fists. He grabbed him by the collar, hitting him over and over again, beating poor Theon senseless. His left eye closed. It was so swollen. Eventually, his body gave out and he collapsed to the ground, out cold. Daario sighed, running a hand through his hair. Ah, where were we? He said, returning to Jon. He knelt down to Jon's level, grabbing fistfuls of his shirt to bring him up. Come on, bastard. Die on your feet. I'll give you that. Fuck you, Jon whispered, the blood reaching his mouth. Don't be like that. Come on. What are your last words? Need me to tell the Queen something for you? Jon didn't say a word, anguish on his face. Perhaps how you wanted to fuck her. Yet knowing only I know the sweet pleasure of her royal cunt. Though it seemed to Daario that Jon did want to say something, so he leaned forward. Jon bent his neck down to hover over Daario's face. Perhaps the sellsword had expected a whisper. Instead, Jon used his last bit of energy to latch his teeth down on the only flesh he could get to. Daario's left cheek. Jon's teeth tore through the fleshy bit. Daario screeched, thinking he needed to retreat. So he rocked back. Only this caused the chunk of flesh in Jon's mouth to be separated, leaving a bare, bloody wound exposed on Daario's face. Jon spat the piece of flesh out and laughed, even though it hurt. "Fuck you, sellsword." Daario wailed in anger. "Don't worry, I'll take good care of your sword. I'll be taking that back." Despite the pain, he grinned darkly. "I hear your sister is a pretty thing. I think I'll eat your sword, and fuck her with it. I wonder if her cunt is as sweet as the queen's." He bit down on his lip as he imagined it. "You know what? I don't care about your last words." Seconds later, he thrust his blade into Jon's stomach with murderous intent. He twisted it sideways, just because he wanted to. Make him suffer. Jon gritted his teeth as they became stained with his blood, though he didn't scream, and looked Daario in the eye. "Shame, you had to kill me like a coward." "No honor," he hissed. "Fine, just die." Daario pulled out the knife, blood dripping from the blade. Looking closely, Jon saw the etching of a naked woman on the handle. Fucking figures. "I do enjoy this, but that's just a reward. My first reason is simple." He angled the blade above Jon's chest. "For the queen." Many blades had pierced him, from quick, clean cuts to jagged wounds, but nothing could prepare him for the feeling of being stabbed in the heart. No pain, just a firm push. Like if Daario had merely thumped him in the chest. It felt almost anticlimactic. Blood gurgling, a laugh left his lips. It didn't even hurt. Just empty, numb. Drawing it out, Daario smirked. His cheek wound made him look like a tourney jester. "Goodbye, bastard." Humming a brothel ditty. He merely walked away, steps thudding on the stone floor. But Jon couldn't hear, body shutting down as he keeled over, collapsing on his back. He stared at the ceiling. His sand-colored tunic looked more red than anything, blinking over and over again, fast, then slower and slower, his breathing turning into hyperventilation, trying to suck in all the air in the room. Dying mind in one last gasp of activity. Images of his family filled his eyes, the family he was now leaving. Carrying Rickon on his back, getting him to laugh after he sprained his ankle. Teaching Bran how to swing a sword, easing him through the difficult parts. Riding with Arya in the Wolfswood, braving the wrath of Lady Stark to put a smile on her face. Lifting Sansa over a muddy puddle, a moment where her sisterly love for him burst through Lady Stark's teachings, giving him a loving peck on the cheek. Sparring with Robb, swapping banter and good-natured insults as they clashed blades. Fishing with his father and uncle, simply enjoying a quiet time bonding with them. Tossing a stick to Ghost, watching the massive direwolf grab it and come back for a flurry of pets and scratches. Snuggling up with Ygritte in their tent, content to simply be with her as the blizzard winds howled outside. A dark cave illuminated only by firelight. Just the two of them, her silver hair sparkling as he slowly leaned into her. But it was futile. Death had called upon Jon Stark, rapidly beckoning him into its embrace. His breathing evened out until it stopped outright. But in his last moment of life, the White Wolf held only one thought, one name on his last breath. Dane. With a whispered murmur, it was over. There were distant footfalls getting closer and closer, but all for naught. Jon Stark was dead. The castle woke suddenly. At least that's what bunches of footsteps outside of Dany's door sounded like. That's what forced her eyes open earlier than normal. At first she thought they were under attack, but if there were attacking ships outside, she would have definitely felt Drogon's presence. She didn't. Nevertheless, something was going on inside her keep. Before she could even get up to investigate herself, her door swung open suddenly. Missandei stepped through, breathing hard like she had been running. "Your Grace, something's happened." Daenerys only had time to clothe herself in a white gown. Barristan led her and Missandei through the halls until they entered the throne room. Many unsullied had gathered there, many speaking in their native tongues. Something about lack of security, letting something happen. Dundai didn't catch it all. A crowd gathered around a spot near the steps by the throne. On her way there, she passed Theon Greyjoy laying on the ground as a Dothraki healer attended to him. He was covered in blood, nearly head to toe. Certainly looked battered. As she drew closer to the actual throne, she was halted by Barristan. "Hold up, Your Grace," he said, turning to her. "Let me see what's happened." He set his eyes on some nearby guardsmen. Dainty couldn't keep her eyes off the crowd before her, a mixture of Unsullied, Dothraki, and even servants. The voices joined together, making the hall rather loud. The queen stepped forward without Barristan or her guards before anyone could stop her. Once she got close, many of her people saw her coming and made way for her to pass through uninhibited, parting to reveal a man laying on his back on the stone. She didn't know who, as she wasn't close enough, but he was clearly deceased, given the blood-soaked tunic and ground under them. All quieted down as she neared, for they knew her reaction may be volatile. Deep down she knew who it was. Even before she stood over him, Jon Stark laid lifeless before her, his skin still somewhat pinkish. He died mere hours ago, if that, stabbed twice by the looks of her quick examination. A deep sigh left her throat as she knelt down. His face laid on his cheek opposite her, but she noticed his wide eyes. Her hand reached out the brush against one of his hands that lay near her foot. After a few strokes of her thumb, the warmth of his skin began to lessen. Her mind immediately shot back to the moment they shared in his chambers. When he used his own thumb to brush over her cheek, she'd cherished their first touch. She'd hoped it wouldn't have been their last, seemed it now would be. Nonetheless, she brought his hand to her face, using the back of his palm to brush against her cheek. She closed her eyes, trying to return the feeling to her, but, of course, she felt nothing. Vision black, she commanded all near. "Leave me." The sound of footsteps retreating brought her momentary comfort. When she opened her eyes, all that were near had left. She shifted over to his head. Moments later, she hefted it into her lap. Her fingers moved some loose hairs out of his face. Her heated violet eyes looked into his dead gray ones, staring out into nothing, no life left. She couldn't stand to look at him without that customary warmth she became so used to. So, she closed his eyes. She held him there, for a while, knowing her dress was ruined forever by his blood. Things left unsaid, bubbled up to the surface. Their last conversation. So much unsettled. So many things she'd wanted to say, but never had the courage to talk about what she had been feeling about him, with him. Her heart told her he felt similarly. Daenerys wanted so badly to know for sure what he felt. But she'd never know. That thought did make her want to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Never had she felt so damned empty. Too late to come to terms with what she had been feeling. Only now because she began to realize what it would be like without Jon Stark. So far, it was horrible. Not being able to see him again, it hurt. A piece of her felt as if it died as well. She could say it. Daenerys had loved Jon Stark. Simplistic, yes. Complicated, absolutely. Foolish, perhaps. Dangerous. When had her life been anything but? And yet, it was true. Regardless of the implications, it had not been her savior, her champion, her longest confidant, or even a political match that had won her heart, but rather her greatest foe. How quaint. It would have been the perfect song, now a tragedy. The realization came now that he was gone. It took her a few moments. Maybe she had known before. But it didn't matter anymore. That made it hurt worse than any pain she'd so far endured. Her heart had never felt heavier. It weighed on her. Something that would never be resolved. This feeling felt as if it would never depart. A shuddering breath left her mouth as she kept her eyes on Jon. Then lips pursed. She wished so badly to go back. Go back and say all she needed to tell him. "I love you. I hope you know that," she whispered, hanging her head over him. Her loose hair shrouded them as she kissed him on the forehead. She couldn't believe she'd said it out loud. It never happened before. Probably because she'd never dared love anyone. No one ever deserved my love. Who could love a dragon? A dragon's equal, apparently a wolf. Her eyes shut hard, remembering the time they did spend together, the good and the bad, mostly bad. But looking back, that had only endeared him to her. A man of honor, of strength, willing to defy a dragon for his family and his people, the ally I need. Missandei was right, more than either of them could imagine. That only made Daenerys wish there could have been more. Oh, how they argued. For what? The throne just seemed silly to her now. All she wanted was to talk to a brooding man from the north, to feel the touch of him against her skin, to look upon his face, who she had lost too soon. Moments later, a lone tear trailed down her cheek. Her eyes shot open then, totally surprised, thinking all her tears had been lost after Drogo died. But there she was. Goodbye, Jon Stark. He was gone. She remained. Her sadness washed away soon enough, leaving the Dragon Queen to her old devices. Anger. It came quickly, like the red-hot fire that Drogon spat on her enemies, boiling up until she had nowhere to put it. Daenerys rose, carefully setting Jon aside. Her eyes shot to the right, seeing Barristan standing next to Missandei. Their expressions were of sheer shock. They were unable to move once they saw what had happened, despite the command to leave. Then, with gritted teeth, Dany yelled, her voice booming, "Who did this?" 7 save whoever was responsible for this, for they would die screaming.